everybody. Welcome to Overwatch Open Division Season 3. I'm your host, Gio. I'm joined by Analysts, Thibbledog and Nari. How are you guys doing?
I'm all right.
Doing
Hey,
good?
man. Good to be here.
Sweet. So today we're starting off with a game between CCF Iron and Nantes Esports. It's going to be pretty exciting. So let's start talking about it. So Nantes Esport, we've spoken to their team captain and they say that they feel like Control is their strongest map type because of their 3-3 composition. How do you feel like CCF may, try and counter this if they end up pulling it out?
All right. So 3-3, as we know, is generally 3 tank, 3 support, also known as GOATs. Pretty standard that we've seen very often coming through in not only competitive play in the game, like in competitive mode, but also in the professional leagues that have been going on the last few months. Probably something that is good to note is that CCF lack an experienced main tank at the moment. If I remember correctly, the main tank only has about 30 hours on tank at the moment. So while they will have the main tank, it's going to be a great strategy for them to kind of try and exploit that. So I'm expecting possibly a Pharah, maybe a Junkrat, get as much shield break as possible, potentially bring out the Zenyatta, discord the Reinhardt, bring him down. Once he's down, it's going to make that composition very difficult to deal with. Also, having the Junkrat and the Pharah with all that spam damage is going to make life incredibly difficult for their Brigitte. So that's probably where they're going to be trying to focus.
Sounds interesting. Thibble, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think the only way to overcome GOAT's comp is by something that is somehow more aggressive than GOAT's comp, right? Which is it's hard to imagine something like that exists, but really double projectile with Zen and maybe a Mercy damage boosting as well is probably the only way they're going to be able to overcome the sheer bulldozer that is the GOAT's comp. You know what I mean? They're gonna have to break them down before they can get any meaningful picks. Otherwise, they're just gonna get run over pretty much.
That's pretty interesting. So, Nari, let's talk about the kind of SR differences between these two teams because they're not entirely matched. We have CCF who kind of average around the high plat, low diamond kind of region, whereas Nantes have, slightly higher diamond players, but they've also got 2 masters players on their team. Do you think this is going to have a significant, impact on the way this game goes?
Not really. Sometimes it's possible for you to see a difference if, for example, the difference is something like Grandmaster and Gold. Then there's a very good chance that you're going to see the match lean heavily towards the Grandmaster team. But when you're seeing teams that are so close in SR range, the chances, it depends so much more on the team synergy, team composition, how well they're playing together. You also need to remember that SR isn't the best representation of your skill, especially not in higher levels of competitive play. A lot of competitive players don't really care about their SR as much as they do about just personal growth and making sure that they can work together well in a team. You might do far better on a team than you ever would in competitive play. So I don't believe that it's going to make a huge difference, but I suppose only the players and their hard work getting up to this point will be able to tell us for sure.
I mean, that totally makes sense. Thibble, what do we think about this amazing synergy that we have between Ben and Funny Burn on Nantes? So for those who don't know, that's their DPS and their main healer. We've heard that they've got some really great synergy that allows their DPS to play super aggressively. Do we think this is going to, set the pace for how these games are played?
I absolutely think it will. When we're talking about GOAT's comp versus anything that can really overcome GOAT's comp, you want to look at aggressive DPS plays to really pick down the whatever straggler you can find from the death ball that is GOAT's, right? When you're pushing with a very aggressive Pharah or a Genji who is where the strategy is to help that player succeed as best as possible, if they can get something very quickly and overcome the sheer sustain that GOAT's comp provides, the composition falls apart. Right? Without one support or one tank, suddenly GOATS is missing a major component. Every component of GOATS is super, super key. So if the Mercy is enabling the Genji or the Pharah, and that player, the DPS, is playing very smart positionally and then just picks their fights really well to get a straggler, all of a sudden GOATS comp loses all its steam. So I think it's really key for them to maximize that potential coming from the DPS and the main support duo there. Really support them and make sure that they can turn the fight in their favor, because that's going to be the easiest way for them to do that.
Yeah, that sounds like it makes sense. And especially as the team captain also told us they really favor 2-2-2 comps as well, which I think, having a strong Genji in that's going to be pretty favorable, right?
Yeah, definitely. Running the 2-2-2. If you're running a Genji into a Brigitte, it can be quite dangerous. But I found that most high-skilled Genjis have a way to play around that. They won't go directly into the Brigitte. That's probably suicide. It definitely will be advantageous to have that Brigitte, but you're probably better off running something like McCree, something that can just shut the Genji down. And they're really going to need to do that, especially knowing that the synergy is so good between the Genji and the main healer. You're really going to need to be shutting that down as quickly as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be the mental game coming from both of these teams here. You're gonna have to see which team, if the team running goats understands like, oh man, we really have to keep an eye out for that DPS and focus them down and have a shield bash ready for any dragon blades or anything like that, then they're gonna start to see an advantage maybe. But if they don't realize like this is really what's causing our problem here, they're gonna run rampant. So it's going to depend on who realizes what needs to be done first and then who can execute on that focus specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about Non's off-tank player a second, Dragon, because we've heard that he's particularly skilled at both being really pressuring on the enemy, but also peeling really well for the back line. So how much do you think we're going to see him be played around? How much do you think he's going to make a big difference on the outcome of this game?
I think looking at Dragon and what he brings to the table, I'm definitely a big fan here. Having a solid off tank is super, super key. And especially in this tank heavy meta we're in really right now, having a good, flexible, responsive off tank is a huge boon for a team. So if he can really step up here and make sure that his backline's doing okay, that his front line isn't getting melted down by these hyper aggressive DPS players or anything like that, you're looking at a real edge for them, which I think is going to be interesting to see. How is he going to step up?
Yeah, Nari, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree 100%. Having an off tank that can do that, you get a lot of main tanks that make the mistake of trying to turn around and peel for their back line, and it just opens up your entire team for so much damage. So having that off tank that knows when to, on D.Va specifically, when to fly into the back line and just murder that Mercy, when to come back and make sure that your Mercy is safe. Knowing those key moments is really going to make a huge difference for them, especially if they're going to come through on like a dive composition. They're really going to be wanting to focus down certain targets as quickly as humanly possible. But if it's coming with a counter dive, then they're going to need to be able to make sure that their supports are surviving.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to definitely give CCF, another specific person to watch out for, right?
Yeah.
It's about the balance of the composition, right? So in goats, you take advantage of specific synergies and really like force the issue on a couple certain fronts, right? But when you're running 2-2-2, the idea is that you have a little bit of everything and that you can kind of flex between what you want to take advantage of the most, right? You let your tank step up and deal tons of damage and get crazy ultimates, or you let your DPS step up and get triple kills and all that stuff, or maybe your Mercy pulls out her blaster, just is generally slippery, something like that. Neptuno shows up, it's great. But I think the matter is that they're just going to have to make sure that they don't get run over too fast. Like, yes, they're very balanced and everything, but understanding like they're running goats, they're going to be very strong here. We need to be aware of that in terms of positioning and ult economy and so on. If they don't manage that, then we're going to see some interesting matches, and probably not a good interesting either.
Yeah, so I mean, knowing what we know that Nantes bring to the table, who do you think CCF are going to have to play around? Do you think they're going to have to be more DPS focused, maybe a little bit more tank heavy? Like, as a general thing, what do you think?
I'm going to say that if CCF are coming in with this great synergy, or rather, sorry, if Nantes are coming in with this great synergy between their DPS player and their main support, right? They're going to have to really focus on that, really press the issue and make sure their projectile DPS is popping off there to overcome the sustain provided by a goats comp. They're going to have to keep an eye out for whoever plays Brigitte. I think that's going to be the biggest thing for them. If they can focus that person down all the time and just really make their life miserable, then all of a sudden their DPS are free to just go nuts. They can just jump in, they can do whatever they want. They can freaking steal things off the shelves and like pull their hair and do whatever they want to them, right? The Brigitte is kind of the hall monitor here. She's got the shield. She's just like, hey, stop that. I'm gonna give you the go back to spawn. You're not allowed to do that. What do you think you're doing running around in here with that sword? Put that sword away. But if they can smack the Brigida down early in the fight, or take advantage of when her cooldowns are down and really be aware of that as well, that's going to be a key factor. If you know, like, Brigida just used her shield bash, we have 6 seconds for me to pull out this sword and slice everybody into pieces. If they can do that, we're looking good. If they don't keep track of that, they're going to pull out the Dragon Blade, they're going to get stun combo, they're going to die, they're going to tilt off the face of the earth, they're going to be really upset, and there it all goes from there.
Pretty much. There was another note, in the notes that we were looking at from the different teams, something was mentioned about how the synergy between that DPS and that main healer is so good, but at the same time, if one of them dies, the other dies, and the snowball just goes out of control. So I think at the moment, the win is leaning a little bit towards Nantes, but at the same time, if that issue comes through, if we have that massive snowball, and if CCF can pick up on that, I believe that they can turn it around really quickly.
Yeah.
These are two momentum-based teams here. Yes. Either one team needs the momentum of their DPS popping off and killing half the team every fight, and the other team needs the momentum of Goats Comp to just make sure they're running over and not allowing them to get anything done at all, right? If one team picks up steam, suddenly the other team is at even more of a disadvantage, and vice versa, right? So it's going to be a matter of who can pick up that initial momentum and cling to it, or how are you going to be able to stop that momentum and take it back yourself? That's going to be the interesting thing to watch here in this matchup, is not just how the fights go and everything, but how their ult economy shapes up, how their combos shape up, but also watching for just like somebody's going to have a breakout play in here, no matter what. There's going to be a fight where one team has 4 ultimates and uses them all instantly. Just because something crazy is going to happen. I'm expecting big barrages and Dragon Blades, or crazy stun plays and Earth Shatters. It's going to be a lot of pop-off moments, but that makes for some great Overwatch, so I'm excited.
Yeah, absolutely. So you think we're going to see some like fast-paced stuff, not necessarily the slow burn?
Oh, no. Absolutely not. This is going to be 2 teams just slamming each other into a wall until one of them wins, and that's the best.
I love it. So, okay, the important question then, who's going to win?
I'll let you take this one first.
He doesn't want to handle the difficult question.
That's so unfair. As I said, at the moment, it's shaping up to look like Nantes might have a bit of an advantage. They've told us that they believe that their synergy is really good. Obviously, we won't know that 100% until the game actually starts. But it seems to me, given from the compositions that they enjoy running, and the fact that CCF has that inexperienced main tank. I mean, you got a main tank there standing with a shield. Immediately, it presents a problem. But if he's inexperienced enough that you can take him out straight away, that is a huge disadvantage for that team. So I'm going to say it's going to go to Nantes for this one. And I really hope that CCF surprise me.
I agree. I love surprises when we're talking about Overwatch. Upsets are always amazing. But I got to say today, I'm a Dragon fan. I'm expecting some crazy stuff going on here. If Ben and Funnyburn can pop off together, and if Dragon can step up and enable them with his off-tank play, I don't see this going any other way than Nantes.
Yeah.
I mean, I really hope we see some like super interesting Overwatch, and obviously everybody loves an underdog. So like I'm really excited to see if CCF have some crazy pop-off moments and really find a way in to exploit whatever issues and holes there might be in Nantes' playstyle, because as we know, as we've gone through, they're very aggressive, they have this great synergy, they've got a wonderful off-tank who knows exactly how to play his role. I want to see where CCF are going to kind of slide in and be able to make their mark.
Yeah,
and that's really... Oh, go ahead, Fran.
Oh no, I was just agreeing.
Oh, got it. No, yeah, I think their biggest chance is going to be in the wild card, because that's such a big deal in Overwatch, right? Yeah. It's just throwing something out that nobody expects. It's Dallas Fuel versus NYXL in Stage 3. They took map 5 because they ran.
I love that game.
Like, it was so good, and they only did that well, not because they had really gotten everything together by then, but because NYXL had no idea that was coming, right? Yeah. If CCF can pull something out like that, it doesn't necessarily matter that their main tank is a little green, because they're going to be able to overcome it just because the game plan is shattered, right? Yeah. If they play into the plan of Nantes, we're looking a little shaky here. But if they can throw something out that nobody expected, we got a real game on our hands.
In that case, because, they've got to shake it up a bit, like, would you like to see any really exciting kind of exotic competitions? And what would your ideal one be?
I would love to see some more Sombra getting played. We don't see her nearly enough, and she is so strong at the moment. Her infinite invisibility, infinite time on her translocator is ridiculous. Her EMP can totally shut down a team, especially if you can group them up in a hole, in a choke, something like that, and you can just decimate them. I really want to see some Sombra play coming through, and I'm curious to see how if we're going to see any Hammond and how that gets played out, because you know, you get the cheesy I'm going to hook onto the bell in Hanamura and just go round and round for it.
It never gets old.
You know, except for the attacking team, of course. So I'm curious to see how they're going to use kind of off-meta picks, if they do at all. And I really want to see some new, as Thibault was saying earlier, some really cool, interesting strats coming through that we've never seen before.
I'm hoping that CCF watch the Australian contenders and pulls out that like Pantheon strat with like Bastion, Sim, Orisa, really enabling, you know,
cheesy.
one or two.
Right?
Here's the deal: the best part of Overwatch is the cheese. The normal stuff is good when it's new, but when it's all you see, if I have to see another match of Open Division that's goats versus goats for 3 maps, I'm gonna pull my hair out, right? I'm gonna take this off my face. But if I see something amazing, if I see a forward flanking Zenyatta, if Sideshow just shows up and blesses this game with his energy, oh man, I'll watch this back for weeks. But if this is goats versus goats, man, I don't see it going in CCF's favor at all. They need to know, like, their tank. It's such a tank dependent meta that you have to not just depend on your tanks when your main tank is so new, right? You have to pull out something else that people aren't expecting and run with it. So if they can pull out something ridiculous and crazy, May Reaper, Bastion, Junkrat, or I don't know, man, something great, something fun. If they can do that, there you go.
Well, I can't wait to watch this game. It's going to be pretty exciting. But for now, we're going to throw it over to the casters, Vowels and I Hold Shift. Let's get the pin.
How you guys doing? Alan, I hold shift down a Frio with Vowels. And it's really funny, you know, the whole big pond separates the two of us, but we just learned earlier today that our hearts are actually tied in the same very mediocre, if not terribly dismal American football team, the Chicago Bears.
Hopefully, we're going to see a better performance from Beams Tubes today than we're used to seeing from the Bears on a Sunday. I'm pretty excited about this matchup. Two pretty evenly matched, if not quite high-ranking teams. It's interesting to see what we can see developing in the lower echelons of Overwatch.
Yeah, and both of these teams are 3-1 going into this week, so they both are in that kind of cusp where they're not really solid yet as far as being a big playoff contender for this season, but they do have that possibility of breaking through. And really, to be honest here, Vols, team that wins really does continue that hope, while the team that loses really kind of puts themselves up against the wall here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a few less signups in this season of Open Division than we saw before, so there is still the potential for 1 or 2 8-2 teams to get through. I haven't quite run the math on that yet. But if you drop a second match this early on in the Open Division season, you've really got to get something in order if you want to be making a playoff push. Both these teams 3-1, only dropping one map at this stage. That's fine. You can still win out the rest, go 9-1, you're still in playoffs, but
that would be the goal, right? I mean, that has to be the goal. You would be thinking, especially for everyone who's in. And of course, you know, the analysts did a really good job of kind of hitting on some of these newer players, most notably up front. You know, if these big damage dealers could start to come through and find that early poke with how much pressure might be riding into this matchup, it could really cause that chaos that, you know, right now, especially in the meta, is kind of that big thing, you know, using a diva self-destruct just to cause that chaos. If the frontliners get peeled out a little bit too far, this could really open up a lot of holes as we kind of go through the map pool. And I think it's Lijiang Tower first, if I saw that correctly in the chat, as far as our control map goes. So talk to us a little bit about the feel of some of these more enclosed areas as we get through Lijiang.
I mean, as much as we hate to see it, there's going to be a lot of free compositions on its control, especially when you go to maps like Command Center. Nice and close. Everyone's got to fight in one area on the point. You just keep running the composition popularized by Goat's last Open Division season, and more often than not, you find results. There is some hope, though, to go against it. We've seen how effective Wrecking Ball can be as a weapon against some of these compositions. Just run in with the huge hamster ball, create chaos everywhere, maybe throw in a Doomfist and Sombra too. Heroes that we never thought would be meta again a couple months ago are suddenly at the forefront, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, and it actually will be that control center. It looks to be first and foremost coming up. So we'll have to take a look to see which of these two battering rams will actually come out potentially on top. Again, that 3-3 composition you mentioned has been so overwhelming. And to be honest, it's just been so hard to break apart to where potentially having something kind of spicy and out of the ordinary could potentially break that first hole coming through. So again, we've got non-esports for CCF Iron. I mean, I'll throw you under the bus here too, because I'm going to be a little partial. I'm not going to go there yet, but who do you got in this first map on control, do you think?
I'm going to lean on whichever team doesn't run goats. It's a bit of a cop-out answer, I know. I'm still not quite sure what to expect from these teams, so it's going to be interesting. Let's see how, at the very least, the first round of Lucian goes before I start putting my eggs in baskets. I just want to see something new and inventive from these teams. They've got, as I hinted at earlier, they're kind of in the lower echelons of the Overwatch ladder. They're still Diamond, still not the worst teams in the world, absolutely, but still got a ways to go, and they do have a little bit of room open for creativity over pure mechanical skill.
Absolutely, and I think when it comes down to especially control center, you're going to be looking at a team that whoever gets the capture point first usually finds that little bit of a power swing as far as being able to maneuver around the map from left to right, but also trying to push forward to take away that only entrance point from that spaceship kind of dropping point area. So this first opening point, I think, is really going to be the key. You know, set the tone, come out hot and fast. That's why control is, at least personally, my favorite map mode to start off with, because it usually just throws everybody straight into the deep end to see who will swing and who will swim. Words are already escaping. It's early over here. I don't know what it is for you over there time-wise, but I'm still waking up a little bit. I can't wait to get some Overwatch to get that energy going.
I mean, it's pretty solidly made it midday here. I've had plenty of sleep. I'm doing fine. But if you want to see lots of control, you need to be watching more European Overwatch, especially if you go and watch some of the now defunct Go For Overwatches. You got your control maps. You've got your King's Row. We play literally nothing else. We would just replay the same 3 maps over and over. And hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Well, I mean, hey, you are British after all. I mean, if you don't like King's Row just for the nostalgia aspect of it, I have to question, what are you doing?
I mean, I don't think there's many people in the Overwatch community who don't like King's Row. I'm obviously biased because it's my home turf, and I'm also a Reinhardt main. And
I was about to say, where's those shields up?
Yeah, where else has the playground been for the last 9-10 months of dive meta?
Well, true. And I'll say dive meta is by far one of the more exciting things to watch. But is Lijiang Tower control center is where we're going to start things off. And I'm really excited to see, again, if we're going to be getting any of those breakout metas besides just your normal 3-3 as we dig in again. It will be non-esports in the blue, and in the red will be it's 2C, CCF Iron. And here we go, the first map underway. And man, I'll tell you, for me, it comes down to just, again, this opening positioning. Who's going to be the first team to really commit into getting onto this point, and can they find those opening picks? Of course, the Brigade is going to be huge as far as that disruption and kind of controlling that front line pressure. Oh, but goodness, I mean, as you take a look at some of these rosters, anything stand out to you so far?
I don't like what I'm seeing between these two rosters. It's pretty predictable what both teams are running over early, so the most interesting thing is what we're going to be seeing after one team wins out the first fight and the other team is forced to make some switches. But yeah, starting off, it's going to be 2-3-3 compositions. Mirrors bashing against each other.
And we'll take a look to see who can get that damage done first, as it will be Nantes on the point. Look at this. It's actually going to be this. Getting into the mix of things is this Moira, finding himself a lot of damage, actually, to be completely honest, so far, as it is CCF actually getting themselves pulled back just a little bit further off of point. A lot of healing still coming out, and again, no first blood as of yet, Fouls, but the point will be unlocking here in just a quick second, and there it is. Funny Burn opens up against the Reinhardt.
Yeah, just PNS falls on the Reinhardt, and it's going to start snowballing the fight from here. They're going to take some players low, top 5 first, into Smurf and Minman getting mech. Minman actually already built up the self-struct, managed to remech, and now the rally's coming out from top 500 Smurf, so they might actually been turning this fight around.
Oh, but the Coalescence right in the back line to keep everyone helping. The Graviton Surge is good. It finds 3. Oh, but where's the hammer down at it? Only able to find 1, and they're not able to capitalize the kill. Now the second self-destruct up in the air, falling right back down. Not going to find any kills either, but Jazz Pianist taken down Funny Burn again. So here we go. That's going to be a swing in the favor of CCF. No one's contested the point yet. The first sound barrier coming out, the second one in response. And now the Graviton Surge might just be enough, but still no kills. Again, this 3-3 meta is just so punishing. Nobody ever dies.
We've now seen our third Coalescence come out. Ben Zelda has had enough time to build up 2 Coalescences, invest his second one. We need to see more target focus here. Both teams are just brawling back and forth. Izzydie has now fallen. The Coalescence is coming out from Electrospark 2, so that might finally be an opening, but we need to see more target focus. They're just taking a lot of 1v1 battles.
Oh, but right now, it's actually CCF coming back through, finding themselves the kill again under the Brigida, and now most of the supports are down. It's just up to Ferrano. He's likely going to be getting staggered out, at least just barely. And after all of that action, we finally see our first capture. It goes to the team in red, all of them on fire. And at this point in time, what you're going to start noticing on those health bars is the Brigida, why she's so good. Everyone's going to be getting a shield, and that's going to be a huge advantage for these defenders. But to be honest here, Vals, they didn't really pass all that much forward. It's actually giving the side of the blue side of Nantes coming back in, and they're going to get some hammer downs traded back and forth. A pin from Jazz Pianist will take down Funny Burn again, and now a self-destruct to try to hold the point from CCF. We'll just create some space. The Reinhardt for Nantes is getting low, but will catch himself a Zarya shield before backing up, and now the re-engage with another Coalescence coming through. But again, it's just Jazz Pianist throwing him down another shield, and now the self-destruct right up front. Is there a shield to block it? No, there's not. And Nantes Esports will eventually get some numbers and likely take this point back at 39%.
The consolation prize for CCFI though is that non-esport picked up the war chest and just spewed it out all on the floor. The rally came out, the graviton came out, the Earth Shatter, the graviton, the coalescence, everything was invested. Maybe CCFI want to bring back that coalescence they invested at the end of the fight. But you've still got the rally, which is going to pop now actually. You've still got the sound barrier, still got the graviton. There's plenty of tools to work with on this engage.
The Graviton surge right up front to keep everybody from Nantes in position, and License will actually take down two. A huge Earth Shatter coming through as well, allowing top 500 Smurf and the Brigida to find two of their own. So after that, what looked to be a good position from the side of Nantes Esport right up front to hold that opening choke point. It was a great rally here and a great follow-up from CCF. They're going to try to take this one back. Lucio will delay, but only for a marginal amount of time, and it's back to 46% and counting up. Stall that was 36% for Nantes.
Yeah, and CCFI have still got the advantage in the ultimate economy. That's what's going to determine so many of these 3-3 versus 3-3 fights. They've got the self-destruct and the sound barrier. They're going to build up another coalescence and rally now, actually. So even though there's a couple tools for Nantes Iron, CCF still have the advantage.
Oh, but another Earth Shatter comes out right into the shield of Jazz Pianist, who does eventually fall, but a self-destruct came through. It gets a devout, and as well, Kiku falls. So now again, CCF trying to hold with the coalescence. Rally here is being traded back and forth for both of the Brigidas. Funny Burn is actually by themselves. If they can find that target prioritization, there it is. It's actually just a solo ultimate being used, but if it gets the kill, why not? That seems to be the big key so far. And CCF now above 86%, and they're going to start to get aggressive. They've got the positioning and the time to work with. This is looking good for the first point.
Yeah, and Aya is holding on to the sound barrier. HUD and I hold on to the barriers that are on a roller coaster. Just being invested Shadow as well, and that's going to be the fight over before it even begins for Nantes.
And now a self-destruct trying to come out in desperation. It will find top 500 Smurf, but gets traded immediately away by the Zarya. The Coalescence just in desperation, trying to do something, but it's going to be that little bit of a conga line coming through, trying to keep this overtime in effect, and the kills are just continuing to come through. That target prioritization is starting to kind of come back on the line now as CCF just need to deal with this Lucio, who is a pest, but I don't know if it's going to be pesky enough. Verano will touch one more time. The Coalescence will give some extra damage for CCF, and they'll find Control Center now up 1-0.
Yeah, and CCF were just a little bit more disciplined in some of their ultimate economy. They were still investing maybe 2 or 3 every fight, but that's still less than what we saw from Non. On the one team fight they won, invested 5 ultimates by my count, and just weren't able to build up to the same level. Completely shattered their ultimate economy, and CCF had the advantage going on. So I don't think we're going to be seeing more free. I think both teams are going to be going for this Pharmacy dive we started seeing coming out, and that's no surprise at all. As much as Command Center is the GOATS map, this is the Pharmacy map. Get some cheeky boops off the bridge and just rain down hull on the point.
And I'm really looking forward to potentially that kind of counter Widowmaker play, as well as we are going to see Ferrano as well as License coming in with the scopes, trying to pick off. Funny Burn will be the ones up in midair at the moment, trying to find the shots. Are these Widows looking up? And actually Ferrano with the headshot will open things up, and License actually responds very nicely. So it's a trade for trade. The first res being used, and now the second also. right after that. So all of that work for essentially not licensed in a little bit of trouble, gets discorded, able to find themselves back around looking for that Mercy midair. The Diva's also going to help in the effort, but now the Winston from Izzy trying to create some space, and it's actually Zenyatta for the side of Not will be the first one to kind of step on point and get some capture. It's actually going to force CCF to move on over and contest the point. They will do so successfully. Now Zenyatta in some trouble, but finds the disc mech coming out, and now License also falling away. It's non-esports taking the numbers advantage, looking to get this point first.
And it's the complete polar opposite of what we saw before. Before team fights were run up by huge ultimate investment, now it's just slow picks back and forth. You wait for your Widowmaker to pop off, you rain down hell with the Pharah, and let your tanks just brawl it out on point. There was some room there for CCF Iron to start turning that round, but it was non-esport all the way. They're going to have the self-destruct and the Transcendence now. And top 500 Smurf, even though he was doing more damage than Funny Burn and nearly has the barrage, needs to be more careful. Play round the tower a bit, stay out of the sightlines of the Widowmaker, and then you can find more value on this Pharah.
That poke and prod that you want to see, and of course potentially some of those mid-air Pharah battles, some of the more PogChamp moments. And Ferrano, look at Ferrano, my goodness, all the way out, but License gets booped off the side of the map, it looked to be. Ferrano now in a little bit of trouble, has to use the sniper rifle in that assault form, will be booped off as well by Jazz Pianist, so it'll be Widow for Widow. The point still in control of Not, although now being contested to self-destruct to create a little bit of space, but it won't find anything. Now Mercy coming back through, looking to find their way possibly into that Valkyrie, if at all possible. Ben Zelda has not popped it yet. 1 HP will try to get himself away, but won't be able to do so. So an opportunity starting to brew for CCF as the barrage rains down from top 500, finds one. License is able to find the counter pick onto Ferrano, and that will be the retake. It looks to be 53% is where it will stall for Non.
Yeah, but CCF invested all their ultimate economy there. They popped both all support ultimates, popped the barrage as well, the primal too actually, and going from so reserved and disciplined with the ultimate economy to just dumping everything there. That's not what you want to see for CCF Iron as well. Not have a lot of tools to work with engaging this fight. Look for Funny Burn to get a huge flat barrage off if they can be Mech Minuteman.
Oh, actually both supports coming from Not using the Valkyrie and the Transcendence to try to get themselves forward. I don't know if they needed those both at the same time, but the kills are speaking for themselves, so the kill feed turning up all blue will go nicely for the retake. As you mentioned, that ultimate economy was very much so in favor. The infrareds were popped for both Widows, neither really able to do much with them. And it just opened the door again for Nantes to push right on through with the Transcendence and Valkyrie, giving exactly the results you see now, which is 63% counting up for Nantes.
Yeah, and with Kiko coming off on the self-destruct as well, the ultimate economy is still in favor of Nantes Esport. Just Pianist maybe gets a bit over-aggressive. CCF just have to wait that out now. They can't resurrect that. They've just got to wait back, let Jazz Pianist come back from spawn and re-engage, and that's just going to give more point charge over to Nantes Esport.
Yeah, this is actually, that was a terrible stagger considering the situation at hand, the state of the game pointing very drastically in favor of Not. That's a lot of time that they really couldn't afford to give up, and now finally is all 6. Top 500 going up, Electrospark just behind, giving the blue beam of damage, but it's going to be the Winston of Izzy Die pushing right into this little pagoda on the right-hand side, perspectively for them. Ferrano's able to find Ire. That's a huge pick. Now the barrage coming out, but it gets taken down by Ferrano, who's got 2. Funny Burn able to find 1 as well, make that a second, as the overtime is in effect, but again, the kill feed is telling the tale at the moment. As it comes up all blue, the overtime will fade away, and non-esports will tie this up 1-1.
Yeah, great work from Funny Burn in particular on the Pharah, just raining down rockets from above, shredding through the tanks. And we saw, even though we saw some early value from the Widowmakers shutting down both Pharahs immediately, I don't think it paid off so much later, and I would like to see these teams maybe make a couple changes if they can't find as much value from the Widowmakers.
Well, we are going to the third point here on Lijiang Tower, which of course means it will be the market. And again, this is one of those, I'll just be completely candid. If you're going to play Widow on this area, you have to be absolutely God tier. And I don't know, I'm a little nervous, I think, if we see any of those Widows pop up on market here as we're going into the deciding point of this first map.
It is an interesting composition here from CCF Iron, actually. It's not the free composition we're used to. It's good old-fashioned quad tank. None of that big regret business. Get me a Roadhog in here. Get some nutty hooks. This is what you like to see. This is good quality European Overwatch.
Oh, but Funny Burn, he's going to have to be the one to step up for non-esports, getting all this poke damage done. And we'll actually find a huge pick to start. That's the Moira. Here comes the committal call as Winston jives in. Also, Ferrado and the Brigida is getting right into Zarya's face, who's not having any of it. Ire gets pushed off. And again, look at this swarm. What a great pick to get the Moira first and foremost, giving Not a huge advantage right as the point opens up. They're going to try to stagger out of whatever they can for top 500 Smurf on the Roadhog, but he's in a really, really palpable situation as he's trying to go from health pack to health pack. He actually catches his shield as he comes back through, so he will survive and gets a pull onto Giku as well. But regardless, Nantes stays alive in return as well. The Mercy doing a great job around the backside of this. And you can see Ferrano and the Brigida is right here as well. And now a barrage right up top. That'll be enough to take down Jazz Venus before Funny Burn somehow falls off the map. And again, this zone is going well, but maybe not as well as they hoped. As you can see, CCF is starting to find some success on the left-hand side. But just as I say that, Ferrano takes down top 500, and the target prioritization is going well, as it looks like nobody from CCF will be able to capitalize on that potential opening. It's now up to 35%, and it's going to go even further beyond that from Nantes.
And this is why teams stopped running quad tank and started running 3-3. If you're running a really tank-heavy composition without a Brigitte of your own, the enemy's Brigitte is just going to make your life hell, and Fiorano has really been making that work so far, shutting down all these tanks, letting Kiku under D.Va actually run wild, and there's still a couple of ultimates up to the side of Nantes Esports. Funnyburn's going to build up another barrage before you know what's happening. They've got the Primal and both support ultimates too. They're in a really good position to hold this point.
Coalescence comes out, but the Primal Rage was used first and foremost. Can Izzy take away the Moira from all that healing? The Earth Shatter comes through, and a Graviton Surge as well in response, but the Defense Matrix is good to block any incoming damage. But CCF, they've got themselves some success on the point, and that Self-Destruct will actually clear out some more of that space, as Funny Burn, it will die as well as Izzy trading away in staggered formation, and it will stall out at about 81%. Nope, just 80. And finally, CCF are starting to get some capture percentage of their own.
And there you go. The Brigitte comes out for top 500 Smurf, builds up rally after, well, 3/4 to rally after one fight. There's still plenty of tools for non-esports. They're going to have the Valkyrie, going to have Barrage as well. And if they can demech Miniman, who doesn't have a self-destruct to get back in mech, that can allow Pennyburn to go huge with this Barrage in this fight.
Oh, and Nantes is not even waiting. They're just coming right on through, knocking down the front door and kicking it in. The Barrage in the back corner. Can it find the kills? A great defense matrix from Miniman. We haven't heard his name lately. He's able to find some success, but maybe not enough, as you can see just how overbearing this non-esports team is. As they get the kills, this will likely be the recontest and the recapture here in just a hot second, and it will stall out, and it looks to be 40%, and this is a really dangerous territory for CCF. They have to play a perfect game from here on out if they want to have a chance to get this first map.
Yeah, first of all, CCF need to get back to the point. They've still got 10% of cap charge left. There's a little bit of breathing room, but they need to make some headway now. They're going to have a Nerf Shadow and a Rally here if they can keep this fight going. With the Primal and the Transcendence coming up on the other side, I feel like CTF has just done too deep a hole to dig out of.
Oh, but Nantes is able to let them through on that near left side. The Earth Shadow comes out, it stuns out two, but the Transcendence in response. Now we got ourselves the final fight, potentially. 50%, they need 50 more. Funny Burn has got himself in the window looking for shots onto the point and is staying alive because no one is looking at the Pharah. The Self-Destruct coming out. Jazz Venus able to find one that's on the Mercy, but Ire trades away his life. But again, it's actually CCF holding their own right now. They've got the numbers, at least they did. The Graviton Surge, comboed with the Self-Destruct. They will find two. It's huge as it connects. Make that a third. It's actually Kiku who gets demeched and then cleaned up. CCF, what a retake.
And it's crucial that CCF took the point before that fight. Instead of Esports being able to set the terms themselves, control the fight, they suddenly have to scramble to retake, take a fight on unfavorable terms, and it means CCF Iron, from the pit they were in, now with 10% left on the point, it actually might win this.
It would be a thing of miracles considering the situation. Nantes will come right to the front door. The Barrage from the side will find one. Not able to find the damage for two. The Primal Rage will knock top 500 off. That's a huge pick. And now looking for more as he's putting himself right in front of the Moira, who's not able to stay around for all that long. She will follow the Funny Burn. And it looks like all of that caution was thrown right into the wind, as that was probably one of the easier retakes we've seen. The overtime is going to fade away here, and that will be likely enough in non-esports. And wow, comes down to the wire. They almost throw that one away, but they'll take it 2-1 on Lijiang Tower.
Yeah, great flank from Funnyburn under Farah. Draw the attention away from the tanks of CCF Gaming. Take out the Reinhardt as well. And we're actually going to see that here. Just sat at the side, get the barrage off, and then just drain down hell. Go for the rocket melee combos once there's no real threats to you. And there you go. That's the final fight run out, easy as pie. We've seen Control Center. We're now going to move away from Control to... It'll be interesting to see what teams come up with once there's more objective-based play. You've got to play on the payload, see how the map geometry develops rather than just constantly fighting around one point.
Yeah, and bringing out the left hook too. You gotta just admire the Pharah that's not fearless, just comes in and says, we'll hit him with the left, we'll hit him with the right. Why not? But again, that's our first control. We'll be going to our escort map second. And as you mentioned, again, we will likely not see as much of this, immovable object versus the unstoppable force of this 3-3 comps. As you take a look at that in mind, who would you possibly give an advantage to after seeing that first iteration on our first map as far as playing something a little bit more out of the ordinary when it comes to that never say die kind of comp we just saw?
I feel like the advantage has to go over to Nantes Esports purely because when we went to the final map Night Market, they were the one that wasn't running 3-3. And even though they lost out the point eventually, they've shown more flexibility and more... They're more eager to go to some of these more traditional dive-based compositions, or even just a standard death ball, rather than just relying on the 3-3 composition. And even though they lost out Liu Zhang because of that, I feel like that's going to play into their favor once we move on to these payload maps.
And this first payload map will be Gibraltar. So again, it kind of comes down to a very, especially early on in this map, those execute calls defensively. When do you drop from the high ground to the low ground? Can you find those big picks? And again, we talked about this very early on in Lijiang. We were a little kind of concerned about CCF's target prioritization as they had control of the point. They just kind of let things sit in that kind of weird gray area. You don't know who's winning, don't know who's losing. You don't really know how the fight is going completely because of that kind of scattered brain mentality when it came to who do you go? Do you try to find one of those supports? Do you dive onto the back line? Do you just try to burn down a frontliner? The question marks kind of seemed to pop up very early on. Of course, they were more answered in our second map or second portion of the map of Lijiang Tower when it came to the gardens. But it's going to be interesting to see, especially who's on defense, who's on offense first. I think this will really set the tone for the rest of this set, however many maps we decide to go.
Yeah, and Watchpoint Gibraltar in particular is very much defined by great witted play, especially across the first point. And there, I'd give the advantage over to Nantes as well. I feel like, even though I wasn't particularly impressed with either Widowmaker, Lee Sens was probably slightly better in the Widow matchup on Gardens. So
it was tough to pick, though.
Yeah, tough to pick, certainly. But if I had to pick, I would give it over to Lee Sens, and I feel like that's going to play into Nantes' advantage moving into the first point in particular of Gibraltar.
We'll take a look to see how it goes. Again, here on Gibraltar, this first point, whoa, it could be very fiery or it could be over very quickly, as we tend to see this as kind of, again, sets the tone for this entire map. Getting all the way over to that first A checkpoint can be a difficult task, especially if you cannot supplant your opponents from the high ground. And this will be interesting to see exactly how, Nantes wants to get themselves set up on offense here, as we're going to be getting the CCF will be on the defending side first and foremost in blue, and again on red will be Nantes Esports. So, man, I'm interested to see who can pull off the potential high ground dive better, and to see who, if at all, CCF can respond to it.
And the most interesting pick to me actually is going to be Aya on this Ana sat in the back.
Yeah,
it's great. It's a good pick. I always like to see Ana come out. Maybe she's not the most fun hero to play against. In particular, I was playing a game the other day where I just got slept like 6 times in a row, and that gets frustrating. But overall, Ana is one of my favorite heroes to at least spectate in professional play, and I'm excited to see what Aya can do on the hero. Sat in this backline, out of harm's way, just sending in sniper bullets and keeping the team alive.
A high ceiling, to be sure, as far as support goes, but also a high floor. You have to be able to hit those if you want to find full effectiveness, and it will be the Winston Diva coming out for the side of Nantes. They'll get that high ground bridge first and foremost, and Funny Burn will actually climb his way up to the secondary portion. They do see a couple of players at least poking and prodding at least their heads at the moment, but not a lot of damage found yet. And I don't know, Not looks a little anxious to get up on this high ground at the moment, and Ferrano will actually take down Ire with a big headshot from deep. That's going to be the committal call as Kiku and Izzy come on through. It will be Ire used for the res, but that's a very valuable cooldown to be used so early on.
Yeah, it's all about blue box control here. Miniman and top 5 in the Smurf fighting for the top blue box control. So even though they've lost a couple of picks and the resurrection did come out from the funny bone, they've still got control of map geometry. They can dictate some of these fights.
And they need to find the stagger. There it is. Top 500 Smurf did actually dive in and then got completely peeled away as they able to counter back with the Genji of their own from Funny Burn to help peel. And it looks like checkpoint A will likely go pretty quickly. Will anyone even bother touching? It looks like the answer will be no, as we're still waiting on a couple of respawns to come through. And it looks like everybody will get out of spawn safely, which is another huge aspect coming through these doors. On top of the ship will be our first fight as Izzy and Kiku will come on up, but there are 4 players there from CCF, and they will have to back right on up to make sure they stay alive. You do not want to get staggered early on offense, especially with all of this extreme high ground. But look at this, Funny and Izzy and Kiku now, all 3 committing to getting on top of the rocket, trying to find their way to keeping the defense supplanted from this high ground, and they will do so successfully. CCF is just giving this up by the looks of it.
Yeah, it's good work from Nantes Esports. Just take a slow engage, take best control of the high ground, and then take the fight from there. And they've still got 6 ultimates. They haven't had to invest in ultimate yet to try and take these fights.
That's actually insane to think that there was no primal rage needed to keep people off the high ground, no self-destruct used, and checkpoint B already through. We still have 550. Since is trying to get themselves some kind of a response. Ferrano will be brought right back up, and Funny Burn will chase down the Widow of CCF. Izzy die now up front, but he's anti, has to be a little careful until that fades away. And we'll jump back for some healing of his own. Jazz Pianist, what are you doing out here? Oh, how about a Primal Rage? That's what he's doing. Able to find Ferrano. Now into the back line. But the Valkyrie was popped. Now the self-destruct right in the middle. Everyone will kind of hide around their respective corners and then come right back in as Leeson's able to take down Funny Burn with the headshot, and now top 500 Smurf uses that as the go call with the Transcendence is well timed to counter it out, and now top 500 looking for a way to move through. He's got himself the damage boost and will take down Ben Zelda, so a huge counter pick there, and that will be enough to get CCF their first sustained defense.
Yeah, and they actually going against what we've seen so far, not actually invested quite a few ultimates there. Both support ultimates came out. They used the Infest fight, even though they're probably gonna have it again by the end of this fight. However, there's no ultimates at all on the side of CCF. You used the Dragon Blade, you used the Valkyrie, you're not gonna have much going into the fight at all.
Oh, but the Zenyatta will fall, and now actually moving around this corner are the big frontliners of CCF, trying to find some damage, and they will take down not only Ferrano, but also Ben Zelda, so that's going to be no supports really up whatsoever for the offense. It's just down to the end, and to keep people alive, and oh my goodness, Leeson's able to find 3 in there, well, granted, mostly 2.5, as he's able to take down the D-Mech as well as the Mini Diva. And that will be enough for their second straight defense. Again, this payload has yet to round this corner, and that is by far, Vals, the hardest point of this map to get around that corner and try to track it all the way to its finish line. So even though there is still 4 minutes, that's plenty of time for this defense to hold here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's working so well for Nantes. Now they can just play around this corner. Funny Burn does come in with the Dragon Blade, managed to pick up Lee Sin's. It's out Aya too, so that's 2 picks. This might be the opening not needed.
There was a really good anti-grade onto Funny Burn, but nobody could commit and get down the Genji. Self-destruct being used, and Winston will drop a shield enough to keep everybody alive. Jazz Pianist, oh, will he be able to come right back on? Both Primal Rages are used, and nobody could touch. Leeson's gave it a go. Top 500 Smurf not quite there yet, and that will be a successful push for not. Oh my goodness, they kind of snuck that one through quick.
Yeah, finally managed to break the final point open. 3rd time lucky at least. And 3 minutes 37, even though it's not quite as dominant as the first 2 points would suggest, that's still a great time bank to work with. We need to see a couple adjustments coming up from Nantes, but I don't feel like this dive is working. CCF Iron, sorry. I don't feel like this dive is working, especially with these DPS. Maybe swap it up a bit if you can't get as much value out of Leeson's. I would like to see a bit of pharmacy, actually. I don't feel like Ferran is finding too much value out of this Widowmaker. If you can play around the corners of this map, you've obviously shown previously that you know how to play around corners.
Right.
Play around the geometry of the map, get the drop on some of these Widowmakers and Genjis. The farm might actually work.
And it's interesting because you mentioned it very nicely. I think Ferrano, we have not seen pop off on the Widow, but he does get a pick here and there onto key targets, while Leesons is kind of struggling a little bit more to get those opening picks. He's been more of the cleanup, while Ferrano has opened up with a couple of big picks. That one onto Ana in the early round as they were pushing was absolutely clutch. And that was a lot of the reason for success, especially in checkpoint A. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It'd be interesting to see a little bit more burst damage coming out of CCF just to try to force the hand of Ferrano, make him hit those shots under the damage dealers. If you can't pressure him out, it could be a different story. But so far, that has not been the tale to tell. So as we go through, again, it was a successful push, 3:37 on the clock, but it will be CCF's turn to try to match, if not surpass, the time that was given by non-esports. And it looks like setting up defensively will be a little bit of a different setup than what we saw from CCF. Nantes has both Winston and D.Va sitting in this tiny little corridor up top near the bridge. So looking for maybe a little bit of early aggression, if not some backline dive by chance.
Yeah, but it's going to be immediately smurfed up by Jazz and Miniman. It's just going to be some early poke back and forth. Neither team particularly wants to lose a pick here. You've just got to get some early trade in, get the ult charge, keep control of the area, and let the carts slowly move forward before you take a first engage.
Ferrano and Leesons trying to trade themselves away, trying to find the shots. Leesons is on the Z stairs, trying to move away on the left-hand side perspectively for him. The payload is already going through the underpass, and looks like it will be Jazz and Mini trying to move themselves up, but they're going to be forced all right on back, as you can see this frontline on frontline action kind of going, another battering ram, the battle in the trenches so far. Neither team has really won. Funnybird found himself in the back line. Will have to blade himself out, and Ferrano will actually take that time to find Ire. Jazz Venus trying to chase down Funnybird, will be able to do so with the help of Miniman. And now, again, it's a 5-on-5 action, but the respawn proximity would favor, of course, the offensive team. And Jazz Pianist is way up front. He's getting it picked out, not able to find any success there. Where was the rest of his team? Ferrano finds the counter pick on the Leesons, and that will give, again, the early defense pressure going the way of non-esports.
I did actually like that initial dive from Funnybird onto Ire in the back lines. Take everyone's attention away from the Widowmaker, allow Ferrano to find a pick, and then get out of there. He didn't quite get out of there quick enough, but that was the intention at least. And that's going to be a minute and a half of the time bank already in the favor of non-esport. They've got a couple tools to work with as well. The furthest tool away, actually, is the Dragon Blade. Only 10%. They're going to have plenty of tools in their arsenal to work with, but the Dragon Blade is going to come out on the other side first.
A lot of counter picks, the self-destruct thrown into the back line for the defense, not able to find anything. Top 500 Spurs finds himself too. Jazz Pianist also putting the pressure on, opening some space for this Genji to go off, but Ferrano, he's already done enough to find Ire, and he's able to find Leesons with 2 consecutive headshots. Can they turn this one back? Ferrano is by himself, and he's getting pushed on. Likely will not survive for all that much longer, as it will be Izzy also falling, but Ferrano's actually found himself some high ground, and no one's taking him down. Electrospark, what happened? They weren't able to get themselves out of the high ground, and that was enough for the defense to come back through, and what looked to be a successful push, or at least some opening space for the offense, is immediately countered back by great play from Ferrano.
Yeah, there was some potential there, but Ferrano finally has the magic moment on the Widowmaker. Finally finds the extreme value, turns the fight around, and the cart's going to slowly edge forward again, but there's still plenty of tools. Funnybird, you can't die with a Dragon Blade like that. Come on, dude.
Yeah, top 500 Smurf able to punish as he's got some help. The Transcendence being used for defenders as well as another Primal Rage. Can they find any success? Ferrano coming through huge again. Kiku's able to find Jazz Penis, and once again, the offense is turned aside. There's just no ultimates to be used. All that was used there was the Transcendence as well as the Primal Rage. They still have a Dragon Blade and Infrared and a Self-Destruct. There's less than 60 seconds left before they don't have any more room to move. This payload wants to get there, but they can't will it forward enough.
Yeah, and it's just incredible control from non-esports. You invest only what you need. You punish mistakes from the opposition. You let them come to you, catch them off guard, and then take the fight back. Seize the fight back. And with only 30 seconds left on the time bank, it's really do or die time for CSFI, and they need to find some kind of advantage here.
Well, Jazz will try to open the door with the Primal Rage on the high ground, but he does get poked around quite a bit, but he doesn't clear it up. Top 500 Smurf wants to come in with the big Dragon Blade. The Self-Destruct will try to counter out, and it will be enough, it looks like, for the offense to get some kills. The Self-Destruct countered. Ire with a really good trigger on that Transcendence. It'll just be up to Kiku to stay alive, but They will not be able to do so. They will kill a couple of seconds, which will not quite get that to overtime. That would have been nice to kind of take away some of the time for the second point, but regardless, we're at 2:30, and Funnyburn needs to get out of here. Wait, he had the late respawn, and he will get taken down, so a big opportunity here for CCF.
And now they can keep pushing. Top 500 Smurf calls, but you can punish some of these late spawns. Take it as any archer at the side. No, actually, Miniman gets dematched before they can find a pick onto Carrier's pick. That could have been disastrous for Nantes Esports. They managed to turn that fight around. And even though the trades back and forth, that's a huge momentum killer for CCF Iron. Nantes Esports can actually take a re-engage quickly here now.
And that's exactly what they're doing. But top 500 Smurf, he goes in quickly for Izzy before he can get healed back up and is able to find the kill. Big pick, again, kind of keeping the momentum in a little bit of a neutral state, and the payload will round the second turn. Moving forward for Point B, but look at this spot from Nantes Esports. They're just holding this right-hand side perspectively for them. Ferrano's up top. He finds a headshot on the Lisas before he goes down. And now coming out with the Valkyrie is the side of Nantes Esports. But again, up top, it's CCF. They win the high ground and fall right down into the back line. Electro Spark able to pick up Lee Sense as well as Ben Zelda. So both Widows back on the field. The Transcendence coming out. Another Valkyrie being popped for Electro Spark. The self-destruct goes up. It comes down. It finds Funnyburn. And that might just be enough to keep this tied in favor of CCF, but they still have work to do. Both frontliners are here, and they have Ben Zelda keeping them healthy.
Yeah, it's going to slowly turn in favor of Nantes Esports. Investor self-destruct in the backline now. Doesn't quite find anyone. Lands up on the bridge, but it still turns everyone away. Funnyburn's got a Dragon Blade now. Is he going to invest it? Piku does get demech, so maybe it's going to start turning in favor of CCF Iron again. Trade's still coming back and forth. They managed to find the kill onto the Baby Diva, but top 500 Smurf has to retreat for some healing.
Ferrano just found two big picks, able to demech one and find another. Grapples back up to the high ground looking for Mini, and they will find the Mini Diva. That's going to be enough. Somehow, some way, Nantes Esports continues to find these last-second clutches from unexpected players. Ferrano right there, able to find themselves two, as it looks like we have a quick pause and a handful of questions at the back end, but it looks like Electro Spark has disconnected for a small moment. So, wow. Again, we talked about Ferrano not popping off. You know, in the early parts of this game, he has had a monumental impact here on defense.
Yeah, maybe sometimes you just need a game or two to get warmed up, get loose, get your aim going, get the juices flowing, and that's what we're finally seeing from Ferrano. He's been absolutely huge on this defense so far, and even though not CCF Iron is finding some of these picks where they need to right at the end to win out the team fights, almost going into overtime, it's still been Nantes Esports completely control altogether, and especially with Electro Spark disconnecting and losing all the Valkyrie ult charge, I do feel like this is definitely going to play in favor of Nantes Esports, and this map's going to go in their favor.
Very well could be, and I want to turn your attention to another aspect, Valves. We talked about the Widowmaker matchup, but how about this Genji gameplay? At this point, we've seen a couple of times where the Genjis had the opportunity to potentially have big Dragon Blades, but the trigger was never pulled, and they end up falling maybe because of it. Is that kind of a showcase of somewhere to improve, or is it just really good kind of peel and prodding from things like Winston's and Divas keeping the Genjis out of the backline?
I mean, you gave Shadowburn a shout out on Liu Zhang earlier when we saw the Farah battles, and I feel like it's only fair to bring him up again. You've got both these Genjis more patient, not trying to invest in Dragon Blades as soon as you get them. Try and find your opening, maybe just go for a couple dash resets if you can afford to not use Dragon Blade. And yeah, even though there are some sections where, okay, maybe you want to invest a Dragon Blade there, maybe you could have turned that fight around if you'd popped it. I do like to see this patient style. It is very refreshing.
It's one of those things, though, you kind of sit there and second guess yourself, I'm sure, as the Genji saying, woulda, coulda, shoulda, at certain instances of the game as we are back in. Electro Spark has come right back down. As he said, his PC shut down. That had to be a worrisome moment for him. But again, as you mentioned, this is a lot of positioning gained for the side of Nantes Esports, and there's only the next 5 seconds before overtime comes through. They will be able to touch no problem, but can they stay on? That's the big question. Again, Ferrano up top, trying to find something from behind, but now finally top 500 Smurf able to find a huge Dragon Blade, put that thing away. There are ladies presence. He finds 4, needs to find just the last 2. Jazz Pianist will find one of them, and holy cannoli, CCF Iron off the back end. It's almost as if we scripted this one, Vals. Top 500 Smurf finds 4 and gets the conversion.
Yeah, and it's okay to save your Dragon Blade sometimes if heavy Dragon Blade looks like that. Top 500 Smurfs completely single-handedly wins out that fight. There's still a couple tools for CCF, for non-esports to work with, sorry. They've got the Dragon Blade Transcendence. They've got to avoid double stacking these support elements though. That's something I've seen both these teams do a lot, and with the Valkyrie and the Transcendence on the side of non-esports going into this fight, they need to avoid dumping both these at once.
The res has to be used to get Leeson's back up. He finds one before he does fall away. And again, that was a huge committal. The Valkyrie coming out from Benzelda. They don't even want this one to stick around. They want to put this one down now. A very aggressive res gets off, and Izzy dives right into the Primal Rage. It will be Ire trying to get the Transcendence alive, but again, 40 seconds left. The self-destruct also used it to gain some space. And now on the back end, here's another Dragon Blade coming out. Counter versus counter. And it will be Izzy Die to drop right away. Benzelda also taken down. Top 500. Where was this earlier? Finds himself 2 more big ones. Make that a 3rd. He cleans up 4, then turns around in the second Dragon Blade and cleans up 3. That might just be enough to give them some hope for this push.
Yeah, and we talk about Patient Swordsman, and I have complimented it, but this is the point where you look at Funny Burn's keyboard and make sure he actually has Q bound. He's held on to this Dragon Blade way too long now. This is do or die time. You need to find a huge fuse here. He's finally going to pop it.
Does come through, able to find Electro Spark, who was trying to get a res off, and that might just be all he needs. Able to find Lee Sins in the back line as well. Overtime in effect, the numbers favoring the defense as well as the respawn proximity. Diva will fall away. Can anybody touch this? Top 500 Smurf will. Oh my goodness, no, he won't. He was dropping down in really good focus from Nantes, and they will take the second map in very convincing fashion. At least what it seemed to be early was turned aside. CCF gave it a go, but there was not enough fuel in the tank. And man, top 500 Smurf really showed up and put his name into the equation.
Yeah, top 500 Smurf tried his best to drag his team kicking and screaming across the goal line. Didn't quite work out, but I do feel like he was the better Genji in this matchup. You've got to give top 500 Smurf credit there.
Absolutely nothing to be taken away. 10 Dragon Blade kills. It was on 5 Dragon Blades, and 7 of them came at the end. But hey, you take them where you can find them. Unfortunately, it just was not enough to keep CCF in this game. So it will be, again, Watchpoint Gibraltar. Our escort map goes the way of non-esports, looking to put this one away potentially on our 3rd map style. This will be on Assault coming up.
Yeah, we are going to take a quick halftime now. We're going to throw to the desk, and we're going to bring you some great analyst action with Gio, Naomi Mizuki, and Fibbledot.
So that was pretty exciting. Welcome back to the desk. It's time to talk about those first 2 maps that we've had. So welcome back, Fibble, Nari. How did you find those games?
Man, that was something. That was more than I was expecting, honestly. And I say that in the nicest way possible. But like, wow, this is like a close, like really good game. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I think we got to see the surprises coming through from CFF that we were hoping for. Nantes obviously showing quite a bit of dominance there, but CFF really bringing it to them and not allowing them to just completely steamroll.
Yeah, I mean, in the pre-game segment that we did, we spoke a lot about how we're expecting this synergy between Ben and Funny Ben of Non. It was really interesting on Control Center, the first map that they played, that we saw them play the Moira and Brigitte together, as opposed to, you know, like how we later saw them on the Genji and Mercy, which we were kind of expecting to see them on. What do we think of them on Moira and Brigitte and those picks for those 2?
I was super happy to see that, honestly. It makes the most sense to have them on those 2 heroes specifically, because that synergy is the closest you can get to a carry DPS and its pocket support. You know, Ben did a fantastic job on Moira. I don't think he got caught in a grav or a shatter more than once each. Like, just super slippery. And the entire time he was just I'm spraying you down. Like, so Funny could go on all these like crazy forward pushes with the main tank and was enabled entirely by Ben. But at the same time, Ben very rarely got caught out, and in that sense could also support the rest of the team too. So it was never just like, I'm tunnel visioning my carry DPS so we can win the game. It's, yes, I'm absolutely sticking my healing beam on him at all times, but I'm also making sure that the rest of my team lives too, which was super key in a lot of fights, because there were like 18 trillion gravitons and earth shatters thrown out in that first round. It was like every
That's a
fight
lot.
lasted 3 minutes, every 30 seconds they used all 6 ults, and then the fight never ended. So it was interesting to see him step up in that way and really make the difference in a lot of fights.
Yeah, I think it was you, Thibault, who mentioned when we were watching Gibraltar that Funny with Ben next to him is like a grandmaster with a nano boost, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, he was doing what top 500 Smurf could do when he was nano boosted and just going nuts, just by being pocketed with Mercy. On their first attack, he pushed all the way, like he was about to fall off the cliff on last. It killed like 3 people and then got away. That's not a thing that should happen, and yet, right? Like with Ben just pocketing him so thoroughly, what are you gonna do, man? You got deflect, you got high mobility, crazy damage with the damage boosting as well. Like it's the best of both worlds there. They're so in tune together, no matter what comp they're running, that it's great. They do a lot.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting. Like, I loved watching them. But Nari, what do you think maybe about the comparisons between the tank synergies on both sides? As you know, we know often the tank synergy can either make or break a team, and we saw some very interesting tank play from both sides here.
I think CCF, jeez.
CCF.
Them. They were having a little bit more issues on their tank synergy, but at the same time, coming through from Nantes with their diva that was doing so well with being aggressive and managing to peel, sometimes that also created a bit of an issue with synergy between him and his main tank. You know, getting that tank synergy just right is so difficult, and I think that Nantes showed it quite well when, you know, with them running the Brigitte and the Moira. Their synergy was so good. Their tanks with the Reinhardt and the Zarya working so well together, bubbling and shielding, and then you got your Brigitte pack going out there. Goats is so huge on your tank synergy and your tank play. And unfortunately, you know, we did mention that CCF said Control was going to be their better map because they do like to run the Goats. It was not. But I felt like, sorry, not. Yeah, exactly. So that just proves their point. You know, they're saying that they were going to be stronger with the Goats, and they did. But at the same time, it seemed like they were getting a little bit outplayed, and they maybe should have swapped off a bit earlier. But coming through, you know, the tanks working together, they did a lot of work there. And moving on to Gibraltar, once again, weird tank picks coming through. You know, they had the dive on defense, which can usually work quite well. But again, because you've got that diva that's alternating between aggressive and peeling, it can detract a bit from your synergy. And I think that they suffered a little bit there. But yeah, overall doing quite well.
I mean, oh, sorry, go on.
No, okay. I think it really, you could see that it took a second for CCF to really get the thing rolling in terms of tank synergy, right? There were a lot of mispositioned shields, a lot of big shatters coming in because Izzy wasn't necessarily quite on the ball as much as he could. It got a little better in Gibraltar, but like she said, when your diva is peeling for your backline and taking care of the Genji that's going to kill everybody if you don't take care of him, that's not the time for the Winston to go, right, I shall go get the Zenyatta now. You can't do that. So Izzy would sometimes like, oh, this is the perfect time for me to jump in, but at the same time, Kiku was all the way back there, and then he got caught out. So they need to really nail that down if they want to have a chance in this series, because the moments where they were together was great. They were doing so well together and pushing up together and making sure that their DPS had space to carry or do whatever they want. But the moment they got separated was the moment they started losing fights. So they're really going to have to talk to one another, keep the communication going if they want any chance of pulling this back.
Yeah. So speaking about Watchpoint Gibraltar, which we did mention, we kind of made a note of the fact that they were playing Anna on the defense, which we kind of thought was a little bit unorthodox, especially given the composition they were running. I mean, what are your thoughts on this, both of you?
Right. So something that I pointed out Gibraltar is quite difficult for line of sights for Anna specifically. I know that it's generally a pretty good Widow map, but on Anna specifically, when it comes to healing, it can get quite dangerous or difficult. Then once again, playing into this dive composition, or rather playing with your dive composition as well, you'll have your enemy Winston pop down a bubble, and your whole team will go behind the bubble. And as Anna, you need to be in your team's back line. And you can't heal through the Winston bubble. So there's all these things that you need to be taking cognizance of when you make a pick like Anna. Also, with them running the dive, if they dive into you, your anti-nade can be massive. It can do a lot for your team. Get them anti-healed, burn them all down. It can be huge. But I felt like they didn't play the Anna as well as they could have. And I think that the conditions of the map made it that much more difficult.
I agree. No, the thing about Ana on Gibraltar, or I guess sniper types on Gibraltar, right? Hanzo and Widow do well because they have great vertical mobility, right? It's very easy for them to take high ground. Anna's like 75. She doesn't have that kind of, it's just not going to work, you know? Like she's got to hobble on up the stairs and then let me set up here real quick. You know, it takes some time. So the tank line really has to make that space for them and also make sure, like she said, there's so many boxes to check. Is the bubble down? Is the diva focusing me with Matrix? Am I going to be able to do anything from back here without just being cut off from the rest of my team and then getting nuked down myself? You know, the moment Anna can do what she's meant to do, she's really good on this map because she can, you know, somebody come up to me, put them to sleep. If the tank, if a dive tank comes in and gets anti-naded, they die. Right? Yeah. They don't have the capability, especially if they've used their cooldowns to get in. They can't get away. They can't get healed from whatever distance, you know? They just go down. So if the Ana can do well, that's great. If not, you should switch.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of being slightly unorthodox on Watchpoint Gibraltar, let's talk about CCF's attack, where they were running this kind of low ground dive with listens on the Widow, like from the low ground, knowing that Fasona was on the high ground. Like, what do we think about this?
I didn't really like it. I like Jazz Pianist. Well, when they first jump up, first off, they didn't make it from bridge to the middle blue boxes, that high ground, which is really where you want to start to stage, so you can jump across to the Widow, who is all the way in the back by the door, uncontested for like the first 4 fights. Yeah. The moment they realized they needed to pressure the Widow, they were like, oh, right, she exists and can kill us instantly. It started going a little better. But there was a fight where Jazz jumped down to the point and tried to like, haha, I will sneak through the point now and you guys will not see me. And they all just kind of turned around and shot him in the face and he died. So like they kind of could have thought that one through just a little bit better. But I think the moment they realized who they needed to focus, it got a little better for them. It just, like I said, there's still a little warming up period for them on that attack.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say a slight issue they might have had is something that I noticed was their weird defense, specifically where they were standing on defense. We saw that when they were attacking, Nantes was taking a very typical high ground defense right up there where the bridge was. When CCF was on the defense, they defended all the way back at the checkpoint. And I think that they potentially were expecting something similar to come through. So they were going to, you know, ride the point to there and take the fight to them. And unfortunately, they got to point and the whole enemy team was literally right above them. And I think it might have taken them a little bit off guard because, as you say, it did get a little bit better once they had that kind of warm-up period just to get into the swing of it.
Yeah.
The server hold was really cool. No, sorry. I just love talking so much.
No, it's fine. Don't we all?
Yeah, really. I love my voice. It's so silky smooth. The server hold was really weird because you generally want to hold there if you're running something a little harder point. You know, if you're running an Orisa Hog or something that lacks that verticality, you want to hold in server because that's your best point. And there you've got Mega right there and everything. But when you have the verticality of dive, why wouldn't you hold up on the high ground, you know? It didn't really make sense. Like it sort of worked and then it sort of didn't. And then they got focused down and you know how that goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So quickly, before we go into the second half of the game, Assault and Hybrid maps up to come. Which team do you think has the advantage on each of these?
Geez, I think that CCF had they shined the most on that control point. So I think once we get to 2CP, they might still have quite a bit of an advantage there, because it seems like they're quite good at attacking a single point or defending a single point. But when we get to the hybrid, again, it starts off with a single point. So I think that they could manage to hold that quite well up to a point. But Nantes, being as aggressive as they are, being as strong as they are, I think that they're going to have the advantage on the hybrid.
I would agree there. I think their aggression will serve them really well in terms of capturing points and all of that and holding certain ground. But depending on the map and looking at the verticality, Nantes might have a bit of advantage here if they can, as we've been saying, if they can manage to pocket their DPS really well and take advantage of the space that they can create. Like even on Night Market, their Pharaoh Mercy was popping off, and that's not exactly a hugely vertical map. So if you get a map with a big skybox, ooh, it's not looking that great for CCF. I'm going to have Nantes here. That's my prediction.
I can Val going to be pretty interesting. If they get that, absolutely.
Yeah, any of those are going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I'm super excited. But if the second half is anywhere near as interesting as the first half, then we're in for a great series. But for now, we're going to throw back over to our casters, Val's and I whole shift. Let's go.
Thank you so much, Gio. So sweet of you to throw it over so graciously. We appreciate it. And goodness, we've got ourselves a match. And I'll tell you, Vals, I think this game is closer than the 2-0 that currently reads on the scoreboard. I want to hear that pretty voice. There it is.
The mute button hits everyone eventually. Yeah, I do feel like, although you're right, these two teams have been pretty closely matched, and the 2-0 doesn't quite suggest what's going on. I do feel like it's more of a 2-0 than a 1-1. I feel like Nantes has been the better team all the way through, even if it's been close, and I would still favor them on this map. I feel like this still could be a 3-0, even though the actual gameplay wouldn't reflect that scoreline.
Yeah, and I think you hit it on the head when it comes down to the small moments. It's capitalizing on mistakes. It's making those aggressive calls. It's executing properly. So far, it really has been Nantes who's gotten that edge generally more often than not over CCF. And I'm interested. I think the analysts hit this one really hard when it came to CCF being able to defend nicely and be able to break points nicely at times when we saw them on Lijiang. So this assault map, if they were to do it, well, let's be honest, they have to do it. It needs to be here. It will be Horizon Lunar Colony, which I'll say personally, it's my least favorite map. I'm terrible on this map. I don't know what it is.
It's up there. It's not my least favorite map, but it's still not a great one. I am still intrigued about the rework. Teams are still learning how to deal with it, even though it's been a couple months now. We haven't really seen it in any great tournament play. We've seen a lot of tank-heavy comps. I feel like we're going back to the days where you would just run 3-3 or quad tank through one of the side flanks and hope for the best. But the most intriguing part for me here is that Aya has moved away from the support. Sometimes you need to trade a couple first-round picks and a supportive player for a good little mark, and that's what we're seeing with this Roadhog pick.
And on the other side of things, it's not just the one support, it's the double sniper setup, having top 500 Smurf on the Widow, and Leesons will be playing the Hanzo. Both can be very dangerous, but again, high ceilings, high floors. You have to be able to hit these shots and make the best use of them. If you can poke down some of these frontliners, that ultimate charge for Leesons especially can come up very, very quickly. And it looks like off the bat, it will actually be Ferrano on the Widow for the side of Nantes Esports, trying to find a way to pick, but there's a lot of pressure coming out. And right away, Izzy and Kiki will dive into the high ground to try to put some pressure there. Funny Burn will follow up, but Izzy drops so quickly. All 5 players up there now, as it will be Leeson's dropping, coming right back up with the res. Izzy Die able to get res as well, though, so the pressure continues for Nantes, and they're able to get a couple of kills. And look at this, they've completely trapped CCF in this little control room, and that'll be enough for a couple of extra kills, as the Zen and the the Winston also sitting on point will capture this one away, and it looks like the stagger will be good on Electro Spark. So likely all 3 ticks will come through, no recontest, and Nantes Esports a very quick first point.
Yeah, and even though Izzy lived up to his name and died on that initial push, it did its job. It forced Jaspianis to set the Orisa shield back, gives the Widow an unfavorable position, and that allowed Nantes Esports to just rotate round, take the point, and shut down the offense. There's a couple of wholesale changes coming out on the defense now, and that's going to really play into Nantes' favor. Funny Burn does drop, but they find a pick onto Aya, and that could blow this pick wide open.
Leeson switching over from Hanzo to Genji, looking for a way to dive into the back line if at all possible. Jazz Pianist is there for Rhino, looking for a way to set things up on the high ground, but needs to watch his back. Leesons is there and will take him down very quickly. So again, that switch, as you mentioned it, and to be honest, Hanzo's just very difficult to make work on this second point, especially the double sniper setup. I would be interested to see how long top 500 Smurf decides to stay on this Widow, if he'll go the full distance with it. Again, a very tough area. He's got to find really short line of sights just to find the angles he needs. The infrared coming out just to find some extra, at least vision from both teams. A top side going up with a self-destruct from Kiku. Taking down Electrospark before, and now a second one being dropped, but it hits the rafters, does not fall right back down. And now, again, being uncontested the point, but top 500 Smurf able to find the trade pick onto Ferrano. Funny Burn taking down the Zenyatta of Ire, and that might be enough to keep this defense where it stands. And it looks to be the case. Izzy Die will die shortly after that push was unsuccessful. So still no tick whatsoever on the second B point.
I know, although in theory, CCF Iron have done their job and been able to repel Nantes brought down a snowball. You've got to look at the ultimate economists here. The snowball typically comes when there's one team with momentum and an overwhelming ultimate advantage. There's no momentum now for CCF Iron, but the ultimate advantage is there. They've swapped off the Pharah, so they've reset that ultimate, but they've got support elements, they've got the primal. All they're going up against is a primal CCF Iron. If these tend to get the Dragon Blade up, that might negate it. And if top 500 Smurf can keep shutting on pushes, that works too. Who cares?
Exactly. The Valkyrie coming out for Ben Zelda on non-esports, and now coming back in as Lee Sins with the Dragon Blade, but not able to find a whole heck of a lot. He does take down one, but Funny Burn is actually able to dodge away and now is in the back line by himself. Lee Sins trying to come back for the peel. Will at least shrug him away, but again, the defense so far looking very solid for CCF. Nantes is having a tough time getting through and finding the proper picks.
And this is what can happen when you have one player really feeling themselves on Widow. Top 500 Smurf is just single-handedly taking over these fights, shutting down engages before they can even happen based on pure mechanical ability. It's maybe not everyone's cup of tea when a Widow hard carries a fight like this. I do certainly prefer some of the more strategic, thought-out advances into Overwatch, but it plays into Overwatch's FPS roots, and Top 500 is definitely putting on a show.
Absolutely is, and is doing it from the low ground, actually just poking and prodding, and now finally moving up with the grapple, trying to find a way to get that line of sight, and will be able to do it from right to left. Is putting a lot of pressure down, but the Bunny Blaster actually kind of shrugs him away from that angle before Kiku does fall. And again, really good peel from Jazz Pianist, who's able to find himself on the high ground whenever he possibly can to, again, keep the space and the angle and that hope of getting top 500 Smurf an early pick alive. And the infrared sight will come out once again, so no one will be able to hide away from this one. Non-esports still have plenty of time, 3:35. They're getting close to having the majority of their ultimates up, but again, on the flip side, as you mentioned, it's going to be 5 of the 6 ultimates for the defensive CCF Iron here in just a second.
Yeah, and maybe want to see some swap offs on the offense now. In particular, I want to see Ferrano go over to Widowmaker on his own. I was really impressed by him towards the end of the Watchpoint Gibraltar. So if he can try and answer against top 500 Smurf, that might play into Nantes' favor.
And that might just be kind of a nod to Jazz Pianist said when it comes down to him being able to shrug away that angle. Speaking of Jazz Pianist, who'll go into the Primal Rages, everyone is sitting in the green room on the left-hand side, respectively, for the offensive non-esports. Primal Rage finds absolutely nothing, and now high ground being thrown away as the self-destruct comes out and doesn't find anything. A second one goes right into the face. Oh, and Ben Zelda not able to get himself away in time, and Miniman able to find 3 kills, 1 off the self-destruct. That will sure do a job to keep this defense alive, and Kiku will be able to get the mech back, but I don't really know, not really worth much, as this is delaying the inevitable stagger that, look at this, come here often? waiting, finally taken down.
You hate to see it. It's a nasty stagger. It happens all the time. We're desensitized to this kind of violence now. There's a lot of ultimates on the side of non-esports now, Dave. Got the Transcendence, got the Pulse Bomb and Dragon Blade, Primal Rage 2 to cause some disruption. They've got a lot to work with. If Ferrano can get a nice stick, draw out the Transcendence from Aya, and then they can get a huge Dragon Blade, that might burst this point wide open at long last.
Oh, and this might be it too from the high ground coming on the right-hand side, respectively for Nantes. They're able to drop down with the Transcendence. They need to find the kills, though. Top 500 Smurf will be jumped on to be taken away. Electrospark right in the middle of everything. Can they find her, though? The Mercy staying alive for way too long, and it will be able to get on out with a little bit of a help from Miniman. But again, is there enough done? There's so much damage coming out. So it will be Funny Burn getting 2 with the Dragon Blade. Now looking to zone away the spawn door, but will they be able to do it? Jazz Venus coming back in, but he's by himself. Will surely fall, and the Transcendence just does not get there in time. It's just Ire sitting, watching, baiting himself out. Electrospark goes for the ballsiest res this side of the Mississippi, won't be able to grab it, and now a self-destruct right on top of Miniman. Won't be able to find much besides a little bit extra time, but it looks like she will be denacked once again, but that may have been enough. The defense is here with a couple of numbers. Pulse Bomb does not hit. Primal Rage coming out. The top 500 Smurf plays have not really been there on this Tracer so far, but it's Lee Sins who switches over to the Genji, is able to find himself too. This is going back and forth, but somehow, some way, Files, the defense has sustained.
Yeah, and it's like the ultimate game of chicken we saw in the very initial push. Aya doesn't want to pop the Transcendence before the Dragon Blade comes out. Funnyburn doesn't want to invest the Dragon Blade before the Transcendence comes out. Aya eventually dies the Trance, and while that means Funny can pop the Dragon Blade to clean up the fight, Aya comes back and eventually stalls out the point with the Transcendence, and that buys just enough time to allow the defenders to start trickling in, and eventually they get a numbers advantage. Still a couple ultimates on the side of Nantes Esports going into the final fight, but that was a great turnaround for CCF.
Absolutely was. Looked dire, and now pushing right back in as Karos, because they've been able to find top 500 Smurf, and comes back with a Transcendence to keep all of those frontliners nice and healthy. Can they turn on somebody, though? That will be Jazz Pianist, who was caught a little bit too far out, and Electrospark also falls, so now it's just down to Lee Sins and Miniman and top 500 Smurf, the squishiest targets on the defense, but they're doing such a good job of delaying. There are no shields here, though, and there is a 3 kill. That's enough to find all 3 of those last players. Nobody can touch Kiku with a huge self-destruct to put this one away.
Sometimes when you're so invested on staying alive in the point, trying to stall it for as long as you can, dodging all the bullets coming your way, you don't see the huge alarm red triangle. There's a self-destruct here. Pays off massively for Kiko, managed to find a free K to finish at the point, but it was in overtime though. After a really quick initial point cap for Nantes Esports, they get stalled out for what, 7-6 minutes? That's a great defense for CCFI considering what they had. And that does open the door for them to take Horizon, especially if you can get a good offense going here.
I think if you're CCF, you have to feel pretty decent with the outcome. Granted, yeah, you would have loved to have been able to hold that final push, but again, you mentioned it. They had what felt like an eon to capitalize on checkpoint B there, and it was just a good defense over and over, good staggers, good kind of delays from CCF, and now there's an opportunity here to get one map back and start this, dream and hope of the reverse sweep potentially. This has to be the catalyst. Again, this opening point, I think, needs to be a big early aggression. Just find a way in there, open the door, keep this momentum that you had, even though, again, you didn't keep that second point from being converted. There's a lot of momentum going the way of CCF right now, it feels like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it feels like they're going to then kill off that momentum. I'm not a fan of this quad tank composition. We've got Brigitte in the game for a reason. The meta has been 3-3 instead of quad tank forever for a reason. Although you may want to land some really nutty hooks, and there is the potential some nutty hooks could make this valuable, I feel like taking the Brigitte on this offense is a much safer bet, especially if you're going up against Funny Burn on the Junkrat on the defense.
That's what I was looking at
Obviously, they can't see the defense, they don't know the Junkrat's there, but having a little bit more shield protection with Brigitte, a lot more healing for the rest of your team, negates the Junkrat just a little bit more than the walking ult that Roadhog is nowadays.
We saw CCF try this once before. I don't want to say it failed miserably, but it definitely didn't work the first time around, and it was rather convincing. With an Orisa here as well as a Roadhog, and again, that big Junkrat, you just have to wonder, where is the pressure going to come from? Can this Zarya get her charge up? The shields have to be good. They're going to go left-hand side prospectively, and they will get onto point. A little bit of capture percentage already coming in, but again, Junkrat is up top, and no one is even offering themselves to push them off. Kiku finds the first pick. That's on the top 500 Smurf, and now Karos pick is in the back line, able to kind of do a little bit more of a pressuring Zenyatta as he's on top of this little botanical garden in the back line. And again, nobody can get onto point. There's just no damage right now from the side of CCF.
And in the middle of that fight, Just Pianist tries to channel his inner Janus, goes to the flanking main tank, and although it can be great, there's a reason Janus just got dropped on NYXL. Doesn't quite work out, the protection isn't there for his team, so top 500 Smurf falls. They are managing to stay alive, the Coalescence comes out to keep everyone up, and they're just rolling back and forth. No picks have come through, but it looks like Kiku might be falling now.
Kiku does fall, but here comes the Riptire, able to take down Jazz Pianist. And again, even though the capture percentage is here, it's being contested, and Funnyburn is just dealing free damage right now. Ben Zelda will get a very last-second res off. Izzy Die will not have the overpowered beacon down for very long, and now it's a Transcendence once again, and that will surely be enough, and it will be. as it's just Miniman left alive, the Mini Diva getting looked at by a much bigger body of Kiku. And again, we're becoming a little bit more insensitized to this kind of damage dealing potential of Miniman will fall away in staggered form. 2 minutes and 21 seconds left. And is this time for a switch, do you think, Files?
Absolutely. I don't think this Roadhog's working out. It's a little bit cutesy, but you've got to go for something safer. If you're committing to the heavy tanks, I do really want to see the Brigitte. For Ben Zelda, though, I just want to point out, there are some resurrections that you have absolutely no right to get away with sometimes, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the enemy team, doesn't care, pull it in their face, get the resurrection up, doesn't work. Ben Zelda is so proud of his res that he's just going to hop out the game, take a breather. A little bit of a disconnection, so we're going to pause for a couple seconds to wait for the teams to get ready, but I do like what I'm seeing on this defense. Funnyburn in particular is having a field day on the Junkrat, and with Kiku just keeping point presence, keeping alive with Ben Zelda backing him up, it's working out great for this defense.
Yeah, and again, it's just a little bit over 2 minutes left until overtime. And, you know, one of the reasons I would have to imagine that the offense is sticking with this comp right now is because as you look at the ultimates, 87%, 91, 94, 90, 4 of the 6 are about to pop up. But we just saw how many ultimates were used for the defense. Is this a little bit of a bait when it comes down to, well, we almost have our ultimates, let's just try one more go at this, but that's a lot of time that's going to be taken off the clock. If this doesn't work, this will be only one more shot, and Toronto will actually start things off by taking Moira down, and this left-hand side again getting pressured respectively for the side of CCF, but you can see they don't really know what to do. They're all staggered and kind of sitting in the background. Now there's no supports left, and look where they've put these frontliners. The Riptide are coming out just to add insult to injury, not even needed. As you can see, CCF looks like they're playing defense of where they're positioned, but they're not. I can guarantee you they are trying to find offense. Everyone's going to get torn apart at the seams right now, and now we're at 1 minute and 30 seconds, and still we didn't see any ults come out of the offense.
Yeah, just a bit of split brain syndrome for a moment there. Half the team wanted to go into spawn camp Ben Zelda on a Mercy, half the team wanted to engage on point. They end up doing neither. Ben Zelda slips through the fingers after a couple of picks come through. They do have all those ultimates you're on about to. They're going to 70% away from the Coalescence. They're going to have this fight. They have everything else online. So Funnyburn needs to be building at this Riptide quickly. Izzy Die needs to be getting the Supercharger quickly. They need to match some of these ultimate for ultimate. Otherwise, this is going to be all CCFI in this fight.
And this is almost a do or die at the moment as we get underneath the 60 seconds. One of these ultimates going to pop for the offense. That's the question. Again, coming from the left-hand side, they'll get themselves around the back with Funnyburn is up top by himself, just funneling in all of this damage. What's going to come out? Now, finally, a Graviton Surge comes through, but what else? Ooh, that's a big self-destruct, but oh, Izzy Die is able to strangle right around the side of his shield. Top 500 Smurf using the Hog while will find himself too. The Earth Shatter coming out on point, and it looks like that may have cleared up the point just enough. It was close though. Top 500 Smurf in the back line with the Roadhog, able to clean up 2, opened up the door, and that will be enough to get this first point, but not a lot of time in the bank right now. 4 minutes and 15 seconds in total to find this second point.
I mean, you throw 5 ultimates at the wall, one of them's going to stick. Funnyburn's going to invest his Riptire really early, actually, just to try and kill off any momentum, prevent the snowball coming through. With the ultimate economy as it is, I don't feel like that's too much of a concern, but I can still understand it. This Riptire gets killed anyway, but it forced CCF Iron to wait and allows Nantes to get back in position. I do
All
like
it was is time off the clock.
Piranha's moved over to McCree, Funnyburn onto the Farah. They're trying to, they know they can't go for a high ground hold anymore. They've got to engage on the low ground, and they're forcing CCF Iron to fight on their terms.
From downtown trigger from Jazz Pianist will actually pin up Kiku. Not enough to take him down on initial, but top 500 Smurf is able to help out with some of that damage. And look at this, all of a sudden, Vals, wide open is the point. Up to the third tick, no one's gonna be able to touch. Oh, Kiku, he switches over to the Tracer, able to touch just barely. Is that enough time though? The Coalescence is coming out, trying to find the damage needed, and then take down 3. And are you kidding me? CCF, where has that been all game?
And that's why I didn't like that Riptire. I get that you want to go over to the Farah, but you just threw your ultimate into the wind. You save it until the next fight, you prevent the snowball off the back of your Riptire, and then you make the swap. Even though Funnyburn did get 50% towards Barrage, was finding value to Farah, it wasn't as decisive as a Riptire could be. And now with 3 minutes 16 on the clock versus absolutely nothing, there's no way for Nantes Esports to win this map. They can draw, but they can lose. And to draw, they've got to hold this first point 3 and a bit minutes, just 1 tick. Their backs are really against the wall now, and it's a huge momentum swing, not just on this map, but in this match as a whole in favor of CCF Iron.
without a doubt. Again, we talked about that momentum when they were playing that defense, able to hold that second point for so long. They absolutely capitalized after what looked to be not exactly the most convincing first point. They find the success they need and are able to capitalize late, finding that second point very, very quickly. And again, you have to feel that CCF Iron has put themselves right back into the fire here. And now, can they find a way to just completely make this one decided? Again, that's a lot of time to hold this first point. Although, to be granted, 3 minutes and 16 seconds, they way over surpassed that on their first hold. So they're going to have to do something miraculous here if they want to put this a 1-away in 3. Will Esports?
Yeah, there needs to be an absolutely huge defense here. I think you might find it off the back of Kiku's Roadhog, Izzy Dies Orisa, Fanny Burns Junkrat. They've been finding good value with the tick so far, and there was a reason they were able to stall at the offense for so long. But against the reformed dive offense, with top 500 Smurf back on the Widowmaker, you need to play really careful. Stay behind your shield, play around the map geometry, don't give him any sightlines.
And that's exactly what Ferrano is doing as he switches over to the right-hand side, but Lee Sin's right in his face. Will throw up a counter and be able to take him down, no problem. So an early pick there, but again, a lot of trading back and forth. The high ground still convincingly in favor of Esports, but trying to change that is Jazz Venus as he leaps on up, throws down the Monkey Shield, and will then move right over towards the point. But ooh, actually, the Orisa able to pull away one as Electrospark gets hooked as well. Now a Riptire coming out. Funny Burn, maybe finding something a little bit more successful. Will he find a target though? Needs to get into the back line, and he does find Jazz, or probably not Jazz Venus. He's able to help find what looked to be the backline side. Maybe it didn't get all the way off, as on the point comes CCF. Now Lee Sin with the big Dragon Blade, able to find one, looking for the second. Will surely be able to find it. Maybe, possibly. Oh, the Hog Wild comes right back in. That seemed a little questionable at best from Kiku. And the first point taken, converted. CCF find themselves their first map.
Yeah, I know it was great peace of mind for Esports to rotate onto the point when they did. They took a little too long, gave too much point charge over, which meant they had to play really defensive. And that just fed so many sightlines over the top 500 Smurf who popped off in a huge way. I was a huge critic of some of these Widow plays, especially on Li Jiang, and I'd still stand by that, but they've definitely stepped up over these last two matches. Ferrano on Gibraltar, and now top 500 Smurf on Horizon. This is what we wanted to see from these Widows plays. They are taking over these fights, and that's what you need in the French Sniper.
Absolutely, especially as you start to get into these team competitive matches, you need to have those kind of X factors to, again, open the door. Especially when you're not seeing the 3-3 comps that we did earlier. Someone has to be able to be that catalyst, I think, at this point in time. We've seen instances from both sides kind of offering kind of a, putting their hat in the rink when it comes to, it's going to be me. Oh, it's going to be me. It's going to be me. We'll see what happens here as we're going to be going to our hybrid map. Should be interesting. And hey, we're going to your home ground here of Kings Row.
Actually, a bit of indecision. Unfortunately, it isn't going to be Kings Row. We're heading back over to the States. It looks like Hollywood is going to be the next map.
Darn. I was excited. I was ready for the setup. It was good. It was given to me, and it was immediately taken away like a bad kid on Christmas. Feels bad.
Yeah, life is unfair. We don't always get what we want. You get used to it eventually.
Life as a Bears fan. So yes, Hollywood is going to be where we're going to next. Pardon me. And again, I have to just sit there and say it. CCF, after being able to get that very convincing back half, especially on Horizon, are looking at least prime to either defend or open up this first point. But I worry really hard when it comes to their payload push, sustaining these longer fights. Their burst potential seems great at times. It's these elongated fights that sit there for a long period of time. We haven't talked about it much, but man, Nantes Esports support game, especially from Ben Zelda, has been absolutely incredible. Ire, on the other hand, he's been trying to give the Ana, but he hasn't really found a lot of success as of yet. I have a picture, at least in my head, one really great nano boost that we saw out of the 3 different times that he did offer up the Ana gameplay. And when you come to these big payload pushes, for me, that's the X factor, is these unsung heroes of the support gameplay.
I mean, in its defense, there were a fair few coming on to top 500 Smurf during Gibraltar, and that set up some of the huge Dragon Blades, but it was a little bit quieter on Horizon. I'll concede that point to you. Ben Zelda is someone I have actually been looking for a point to highlight. I mentioned one of his resurrects on the last map, but he's stayed out of our mouths. We haven't given much commentary on him, and as a Mercy player, sometimes that's for the best. We don't all need to be Neptuno coming up with the huge blaster plays. Sometimes you just need to be quiet, keep everyone alive, just do your job, and that's what we're seeing from Benzelda. It's been great so far.
It's one of those things, again, the unsung hero, you're only doing good if no one talks about you. You don't want to be mentioned. That's really the big thing when it comes down to it. But we'll see what happens here. Again, this is a very interesting point. I'm excited to see, again, more of that kind of sniper gameplay, whether it be from Widow or Hanzo, potentially in McCree. On the back end, if you're looking at the offense, a lot of interesting things. The analysts did a really good thing talking about some of the spicier picks, having some Sombra gameplay possibly mixed in. Of course, we've seen a couple of tracers. This map in particular, for me, with all of those different flanking routes, really opens the door for those potential picks.
Yeah, absolutely. We do see a lot of Sombra actually on Hollywood. It's not typically what you'd think of when you think of Hollywood maps. You think of Anubis and Volskaya, where you just rotate around health packs. But on the first one in particular, it can be a Sombra's playground. You play around a mega health pack around the corner, cycle up your EMP, and then take an initial team fight off that. It would be interesting to see if either team does bring out the Sombra. We haven't seen it so far on either side, and I do quite like to see Sombra gameplay. She can be really annoying to play against, like I was saying earlier with Anna, but she's one of the most fun heroes to watch, in my opinion.
I think so too. Again, she brings, just inherently in her kit, she brings that X factor immediately off the bat. She brings something that is really kind of unpredictable, had to be able to respond to very quickly. It puts a lot of pressure, not only on the supports to then stay alive, but also the frontliners to find that peel if necessary to get back towards your backliners. But again, here on Hollywood, it is going to be the side of Nantes Esports on the offense first in red. And on the flip side, again, CCF Iron finding themselves their first map, looking to make it 2 in their hopes of a reverse comeback. They'll be on the blue team wearing the blue trunks on defense first. And as we have 30 seconds to go, a top 500 Smurf will be using the Widow, and License this time will be using the Hanzo. So again, the double sniper gameplay has to pop off early to keep this defense sustained.
Yeah, and there are a few things that make me happier in this matchup than top 500 Smurf on the Widowmaker. As I said earlier, I'm not always the biggest fan of Widowmaker play, but he's making it work, and I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. However, on his offense, the thing I'm most intrigued by is Ferrano is picking up the Sombra pick. We're seeing Funnyburn going over to the tried and true Farah. He's going to have a bit of a hard time playing around some of this map geometry against the double sniper, but if Ferrano can find value and wreak havoc in the backlines on the Sombra, they might hit pay dirt.
Late vision coming out from Lee Sins on that arrow, so they're going to know exactly what they're coming up against. The pharmacy takes to the skies, and just as almost an immediate response, you're going to see top 500 Smurfs sitting on the balcony trying to find those early shots, but again, nobody offering themselves the line of sight, and that's fine. In CCF's book, they're happy to keep this hard corner. Ferrano in the back line now. He's stealthed up, looking to get into that mega health, as you mentioned. Will come up to the back line. He's got time 500 Smurf right in line, able to get the hack off, and they're going to jump right on the Smurf, and he'll fall very quickly. And now the high ground is all non-esports, and this is going to be exactly where they want to take this fight. Electrospark falls, Lee Sins falls. He is able to take down the Zenyatta first and foremost, but Jazz Pianist has got to find a way to stay alive in the face of 5 opponents with no healing, and that usually means 0 success rate, and that will be the case as the second point will start to tick up. Ire will likely be staggered, he will, and that will likely be capture point A in the favor of non-esports. Very good play from Ferrano.
Yeah, and I really like how Funnyburn in particular on this Farah has been approaching this. Scout out the double sniper early. Know you're in trouble if you stay up in the air for too long, so just hiding behind some of the map geometry, only poking out for a second, fire at a rocket, coming back, jumping out into the open only when your tanks have engaged onto top 500 Smurf's Widow and the skies are clear. And then even just a couple cheeky turnarounds if you're trying to go 1v1 against the Widow to avoid the headshots. I'm liking what I'm seeing on this Farah.
Looking really smart, well played. Jazz Pianist, though, on the high ground will be able to find the shotgun. At least enough to be able to take down Funnyburn. The Valkyrie comes out just behind as it looks like non-esports wants to fight on this right-hand corridor in the back lines. Able to find himself through, and a nice res coming out for Funnyburn, who now takes to the skies. Top 500 Smurf looking to peel away that last shot, but is in a very, very interesting spot, and will have to back away as did not have any kind of peel or any kind of help whatsoever, and now being pressured very, very high. The self-destruct comes out, but just hits the top of the saloon, not able to fall down and help out with Jazz Pianist. And the payload, in the meantime, continues to push forward.
Yeah, just slowly taking these trades 1v1. Karaspik maybe didn't want to invest in Transcendence there, but you've got to do what you got to do to stay alive. They are winning out this fight, and with 4 minutes on the time bank, it's pretty decisive in the favor of non-esports so far.
Absolutely is. And Jazz Pianist again caught out. Not really out of position more than it was, just because the backline pressure from Ferrano made it so. and looking for another pickup. But ooh, Leeson's able to actually help out with the Mercy, as Electrospark was in a very, very difficult spot against that Sombra gameplay. Able to find the second pick onto Izzy Die, and now the defense looking to get aggressive as they push right on forward through the middle portion of Main Street here. Jazz Penis will go into the Primal Rage to find one, looking for the second, will hit him midair, and that'll be enough, and I think he'll back up just to say, all right, let's get our positioning, let's get our high ground, let's make sure this defense stays a little bit more stable.
Yeah, and top 5 and Smurf is going to move over to the McCree now. I do like this pick. It's still good long-range hit scan ability to take out Funny Burn in the sides if you can keep the angles up. But you've also got your flashbang ready. Whenever someone pops up behind you, you can just try out, ha! Pocket sand! Go away! And hey, if Verana's been wrecking havoc, it's a great switch. Lee Sin has a Dragon Blade now on this defense, so there's a couple doors to work with. Aya is chunked down really low, dies with the Transcendence, and that's a huge opening for this offense.
Absolutely is. Ferrano hitting a lot of the headshots there, ringing the bell. And now coming forward, the Dragon Blade was enough to at least counter away one. Ben Zelda does get taken down, so trade for trade, support for support. Kind of a moot point, a little bit of a stalemate at the moment.
That Dragon Blade didn't just take out Ben Zelda, it cancelled Ben Zelda's resurrection, so it prevented that fight being turned around again. If they'd been able to resurrect Ferrano, they could invest the EMP and the Valkyrie and turn the fight around. Instead, you invest just the one ultimate, shut down the team fight, you've still got a self-destruct and Transcendence to work with, coming up on a Valkyrie and Deadeye too, so plenty of tools on this defense.
Self-destruct is actually able to find Garrelspick somehow, some way. They'll take that with Kiku with 3. Takes down a support, a damage dealer, and a frontliner. A little bit of a potpourri, and down all the damage found. Miniman is left to wonder, how do you play this? He's just going to delay for as long as possible, which will actually not be the worst thing in the world considering the outcome. We'll give some time for the recommits and the resets for the side of CCF, but my goodness, Kiku has been absolutely lights out with these self-destructs.
Yes. Poco, eat your heart out. Ferrano sets up the EMP and Kiko follows through. There's still 3 ultimates on this offense as well, so they didn't empty the war chest at all. Plenty of tools to work with. Going to invest a Transcendence now nice and early to shut out this defense coming in.
Ire falls down again. Barrage way up high, finds top 500 Smurf and able to stay alive. Thank you, Ben Zelda, trying to get into the high ground. Still is this red team, but Miniman again left to wonder, where are all my friends at? Jazz Venus will try to help support this front line, but it's going to be another self-destruct coming out onto the high ground. Not going to find anything as the Primal Rage continues to put some pressure, and Kiku just drops the self-destruct right on top of the payload. Won't find any kills, but the Transcendence from Ire comes at the exact right time. The defense might just be able to hold and sustain if they can find the kills, but Funny Burn, he's staying in this hover right above the payload point. He's finding a lot of damage, but now finally he's getting turned on. Now the Dragon Blade, just to help the effort from Lee Sins, will be able to help take down 2 as he confirms 1 kill to his own name, but wow, it was close. That does get pushed through.
In the middle of all that, though, Non-Esports managed to find the cap. Izzy Die has resurrected right next to the team fight. So even though the fight win came out on paper for CCF Iron, they didn't really get anything. They pushed Non-Esports effectively back 20 meters into the room on the side. Izzy Die invests early, but the Farah on EMP comes out now.
And looking for that early aggression, but honestly, there wasn't much conversion there. Lee Sins falls, Ferrano gets pulled up, top 500 Smurf, able to find the high noon on the Ben Zelda. That's the only target he really needed to find. Garrelspick will try to sustain up his team with the Transcendence of his own. Not able to find a whole lot of damage at the moment, as you can see just how aggressive these frontliners are being, using a lot the Hanzo, able to throw out the Twin Dragons, and Funny Burn will actually find Iron deep through the channel of that, and now Izzy Die wants to hold W and try to find a kill, but he very wisely backed up. That respawn proximity very well could have been the end of his life, and that's not what you want here with only 1 minute and 14 seconds left.
And in the middle of all that, it's actually Garrelspick on the Zenyatta who comes up huge, cleans up the team fight. Funny Burn did find 1 at the end of the Dragon Strike, but it was the Zenyatta throwing orbs, throwing shapes, shutting everyone down. Ben Zelda does get shut down by Miniman, and top 500 Smurf falls on to Garrelspick, so a couple trades coming out early.
Yeah, you can't let that happen. The McCree able to jump into the, well, not really even the backline. It was just the simple fact that the Primal Rage went so aggressively. And now Kiku again with another self-destruct to find 1. Izzy Die will take down Miniman. That's a full team kill, and no one's going to be able to come back in time. Lee Sins gave it a go, but did not able to find the dash. So round 1 completed. And yeah, Ben Zelda in chat says, PogChamp, I'm feeling about the same way.
Yeah, Great offense from Non-Esport. If there was any doubt in their ability to win out this match after Horizon Lunar Colony, they've shut up the haters. It's now back on CCF Iron's plate. How are you going to respond? This has been a really close matchup between these two teams, and I'm really excited to see how Hollywood's going to play out. This is still anyone's game.
Yeah, absolutely is. And again, CCF, one of those instances, yes, they get that third point, but man, you did such a great job early with this defenses. It just came down to a couple of staggers in the wrong time, and now they have to find a way to really capitalize here on offense. If they could break this first point open a little bit faster than the way, obviously, that Nantes Esports was able to do, it could definitely provide that momentum that they need. They're going to be going with potentially the double flank here as Lee Sin's and top 500 Smurf are on the Genji Tracer combinations, looking for that early aggression by chance here.
Yeah. And top 500 Smurf is actually going to be going over to the Tracer on this offense initially. It's an interesting pick. I haven't been too impressed by some of the plays he's come up with on the Tracer so far, as opposed to his Widow or his McCree. But hey, if you're feeling yourself, you're feeling yourself. Gotta go with what you're comfortable with. Ferrano's actually going to be taking up the McCree on this defense, though, and we're seeing a Brigitte and Anna tank support duo coming up. Okay, no, Ben Zelda's moving over to the Moira. False alarm. But it's quite an interesting defense. We don't often see this kind of defense for Hollywood, but it can certainly work out.
The Brigitte, I'm sure he's going to wish he stayed on when he sees what he's going up against here. That shield bash stun could be the big game changer onto this Tracer or this Genji, but now it's going to come down to Ferrano. Can he find the stuns? Can Karospik find the anti-grenades to keep them from getting healed? Ben Zelda will be up first just to throw out one of the damage orbs. Will do so right through the front door and find a little bit of damage. He'll gain 2%, 3% off of that. Okay, so well found. And it will be just high ground hold, I think. It looks like, yes, it will be for the side of non-esports.
And way back when I said one of the main things I wanted to see was creativity between these two teams. They don't, maybe not huge on mechanical skill. If one can outthink the other, that can win out these team fights. And I think that's what we're seeing with this defense. We don't often see an Orisa tank-heavy defense with McCree on this high ground here. We especially don't often see Ana Moira defenses. But if they can make this work, this could come up huge.
Oh, what a stun that was in Elysians. We're not able to find the kill, though, just after the counter. The res comes through on the Jazz Pianist, who will come back up. But again, the Tracer is having such a difficult time finding any damage with all this. The anti-grenade comes right back up, but Karospik is not able to help find any of the kills. And look at this, CCF just dive right on through. Even though they only had the Tracer and the Genji for damage, the pressure was too much. And Funnyburn, he won't be laughing so long as he gets taken down in this first point. Very convincing for CCF.
And there were two key factors there. Electro Spark was able to resurrect an early pick, which the defense obviously couldn't, lacking the Mercy. And there was no point presence. Even if you're running the Roadhog and the Diva, which are great for just sitting on and stalling out a point while you rain down hell from above, they were sat up on high ground as well, trying to negate the dive. There was no point presence. The early tick came through, and that forced the defense to scramble.
Now scrambling, the defense is up to the high ground, wanting to stay there. Ferrano will catch a couple of shields from Izidai, as well as that defense matrix earlier from Funnyburn. Kiku as well, offering themselves on this little catwalk, and now the high noon comes out, but can he delay enough for the shield to go down? Nothing will be found. Again, one of the hardest ultimates in Overwatch to convert, and now the Primal Rage will be used to try to get to the high ground, but he misses the jump, and what is happening with Jazz Pianist? He will finally get to the high ground, but it'll only make Toronto fall off. Meanwhile, on the front side in the trenches, Miniman able to find one, make that a second with the self-destruct, and a CCF. They're looking like a totally different team as they find a couple of big picks, but Funnyburn still stays alive, finds down Ire, and the self-destruct not able to find much, but still CCF keeps themselves on the payload. And my goodness, Vals, they're moving this thing quick.
Yeah, and this is why we don't often see Reinhardt-based defenses on the second point of Hollywood. Even though they were able to take the elevator up, tightrope walk across to engage the opposition, as soon as Izidai drops down, Jazz Pianist and Miniman can just jump back up on the high ground, rain hell from above. You don't have any way of contesting that. Going to be a couple more swaps. Funnyburn making a last-minute switch over to this Brigitte off the Diva. It's a bold strategy, Colin. They're going to have to give up second point, even though they're going for the engage. The cap still comes through. And they're effectively just trying to spawn camp here. I don't like this defense at all.
No, there was no ultimates. They tried to give it a go, but they end up falling, and they're going to get staggered as well. It's going to result in a lot of free push here for CCF before the defense can even remotely attempt to contest this. Funnyburn will take the time to get some shields up onto their allies. Meanwhile, Jazz Pianist will jump up to the high ground. So again, the potential of Jazz Pianist here, where he's positioned, if he can stay up top and get himself jumped into the background, this could be, again, a very disruptive look for the offense.
The consolation here is that you have these ultimates built up at a point in the map where these kind of team compositions actually work. You've got the Reinhardt, Zaya, both going to invest their ultimates actually. The Valky comes through as well, and they don't find anything, so maybe it's all for naught.
Ire with a huge transcendence right in the middle of that grab. Storm keeps everybody alive. Now it's going to be the back line. It's going to be Leesons. Can he find anything? But the transcendence from Karospik is well timed as well to counter it out. Ben Zelda getting pressured, but Leesons will be peeled away. Now it's Jazz Pianist's turn. He goes into the Primal Rage, and it's just going to... I can take this fight for a little bit longer. Izzy Die also trying to find the extra damage, and they will take down Jazz Pianist. That's the power of Brigida, friends and family. Funny Bird sits himself into a corner and says, I'll just flail you while healing myself back up. They're able to take down the big body of the Primal Rage Winston, and finally, Nantes Esports has something to feel at least somewhat decent about.
And Izzy Dry is living every Reinhardt mainstream. You hold down W, you hold down left mouse button, and you just go wild. Already built up another Rush Shadow. The Graviton's up as well, so there's still plenty of tools to work with on this defense. The Valley's going to come up now, keep everyone topped up with the armor. Jazz Pianist is going to try and dive in. He needs to make sure he doesn't get punished by the Brigade if he drops back down to the low ground.
It will be Mini-Man on the right-hand side for the offense, trying to keep people out of the back line. Ire will actually be doing a little bit of damage to Ferrano, who has to back up. What ultimate will come first? Funny Burn will take down Jazz Pianist, so that might be enough for the defense to keep themselves alive. Will enemy ultimates be committed? That would be huge for the offense if they could. The Earth Shatter does come out and will take down Electro Spark, but again, the more ultimates you can bait out right here with 2 minutes and 55 seconds left, I think the better for the offense. They had nothing to even come close to spend, so the fact that they got an Earth Shatter out of that, I would take that as a win.
And the wholesale changes are starting to come out for the offense, and you'll never guess what's coming up. Top 500 Smurf does eventually switch off the Farah onto the Brigitte. We're going to see it's 3-3. You know what it is. They've got to try and answer aggression for aggression with this Farah. They're going to try and punish Verano's Tracer and try and win out the fight that way.
Oh, Graviton Surge will come through. The shield is decent from Jazz Pianist, but not enough to block the pulse bomb from Ferrano, who finds two. Now looking to come forward, wants the back line. He'll use all three blinks and still has the rewind available. And meanwhile, Kiku, Funny Bird, and Izzy Die will help out. So really good frontline play to make sure that Ferrano stays alive and they keep that pressure. Now down to just about 2 minutes left, as we have only a couple of meters left to get there, about 12 before the payload finishes, but it will start inching its way backwards and coming right back through. Ire now on the Lucio, boosting everybody forward. Jazz Pianist right in the mix of things, but again, there's a lot of shields in the way, resulting in a lot of charge for Kiku. Self-destruct will find Ben Zelda, though, so an opportunity here for CCF to push through. But Karos Bick will respond with the Transcendence, and that might be enough to keep these frontliners alive. The shields coming out from both sides. Kiku's on full charge. He's going to be dealing a ton of damage as Jazz Pianist found out the wrong way, and that might be enough to keep the defense sustained, but still the offense has a lot of pressure here, Vals.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is what you see with these 3-3 offenses. You just build up these ultimates, slowly churn out the fight. The rally comes out of already. In comes the Coalescence. They've got the Earth Shadow as well. Don't quite find Paydirt. And Lazy Die actually comes up huge with his Earth Shadow of their own. Graviton comes out too. And these teams are both just dumping as many ultimates as they can to try and win out this team fight.
Big sound barrier coming through to keep everybody alive, but is there enough sustain in the tank for this offense? Another Graviton comes out in a Transcendence right afterwards, plus the shield from Izzy Die will essentially negate every bit of it, while meanwhile, in the backline, Ferrano was able to find a pulse bomb to the Brigida. A nice big strike coming through from Izzy will help take down Ire as well. So finally, the defense looking good. The self-destruct used in panic, and that's not going to be resulted into anything. They really needed that to break apart this frontline to backline combo that we're seeing out of Nantes, and all of a sudden we're down to 33 seconds and things are starting to look desperate for CCF.
Yeah, Funny Burn drops on the Brigitte. You can't have that kind of thing. They've got to invest both the Earth Shatter and the Graviton to try and find Paydirt, but Izzy Die, he falls early. Kiku goes down too, and this might finally be it for CCFI, and they might finally be turning this around.
The Graviton Surge was again not found nor realized. Funny Burn and Ferrano trying to stay alive, but how long can they actually do that? And they look to convert. They will just before overtime comes out. So again, 3-3, which really just about even time, to be completely candid with you. It looked a little desperate at times, but again, those Graviton Surges have been make or break, and that last time through, the Transcendence was good for the side of CCF with the shield that came out. That was enough to keep them in that fight, and a minute versus a minute 33 left. This is coming down again. A very close match between these two teams.
There is a significant difference, believe it or not, in this 30-second gap. It can be the difference between one team going for only 1 or 2 team fights on their offense, the other having the room to go 2 or 3. But it's still do or die time for both of these teams. You've only got a little bit of time back. You've only got a couple of fights to try and make this work, and then you've got to go for a long overtime push to be able to turn this around and finally win on the map.
And that is, of course, the goal.
Talk
Nantes
about
Esports.
creativity on defenses. We went for a high horse triple tank defense earlier. Funny Burn's now on Bastion.
I was about
You
to
gotta
say, and you got to hit him with it. You just have to every now and again. And again, if you're going to pull out some cheese, it does come with good age. And this time through, as we get into our, we'll say our overtime rounds for all intents and purposes, might be where it comes to be successful. But on the flip side, if it doesn't work out for you, it can be really punishing. There's a lot riding on this, but again, you'll see Izzy just essentially keeping that shield up while Funny Burn tries to get his tracking online. And I don't know.
There's a lot of danger in here too. If you pull off a successful cheese defense, what's to stop your opposition from saying, okay, we'll just do the same?
Right. At the same point, though, if it is successful, you might be able to get that predictive measure to say, well, they probably will, so we can find a way to try to counter the cheese early. But again, look how patient CCF is being. They're just maneuvering, trying to find as much left to right spread and high ground control as they can. And oh, Leesons is able to take down Funny Bird. However did that happen? He got right up into his face, and now the goal call is committed. And CCF, they want to get this point right away. But Izzy finds 2 big picks, able to DMAC Miniman and take down Jazz Penis with no frontliners. What could possibly be accomplished? It looks like not much as Ferrano finds 2, and whoa! What looked to be a really good situation for CCF Iron quickly gets toppled on its head, and now we're in overtime, and it has to be those staggered committals, and Ferrano's gonna have a field day keeping Jazz Pianist at bay. Oh, not even touched hardly at all by CCF was that push. Holy smokes.
It was a great initial setup for CCF Iron. They saw it. They identified the Bastion. They knew it was with a more flexible Vine shield, so Miniman goes in the back, flanks around their side, draws Izzy Die's attention away, and then they get the follow-up onto the Bastion. However, you've just isolated Miniman. The rest of the defense is able to collapse on him, take him out, and snowball the fight from there. And now, with a minute 33, it's all in Nantes' court. They've got a minute 33, just get a single tick on this point. You know you might go up against Cheese. You've played against CCFI and all through the series. You know what they're likely to run. And this is match point. Nantes could quite easily just take everything here.
All it comes down to is a single percentage point. And CCF has put themselves in a bad spot. Well, non-esports could potentially put themselves in a very viable playoff contention spot. Still a lot of season to go, though, but this would be a good step in the right direction. Looks like top 500 Smurf will, on defense, be using the Pharah to kind of keep things, again, moving from the damage side of things. Lee Sins will be on the Hanzo, so again, a lot of damage potential, but with Karospik using the Lucio, it could just be a very quick committal. It is, again, that 3-3, that GOAT meta comp. What can they find? Can they rush this in time?
When we've seen CCF Iron's backs against the wall throughout the series, they've all just climbed into top 500 Smurf's rucksack and let him carry the team. They need that now more than ever. This Pharah pick against a heavy 3-3 composition, they take out Karospik early, and that's going to spell disaster for the offense.
Absolutely will, and Jazz Penis is able to DMAC Ferrano, but the point, it's still being pushed up. Can they finally find this first tick? There's still enough members here with that 3-3. There's enough support. There's enough front lines, but top 500 Smurf will take down a big target in Brigida, and Karospik comes back, but can you keep everybody alive in time? There's only 60 seconds. You might just want to reset and give it one more go. It looks like they're going to have to now as Jazz Penis is able to find that left-handed angle to swipe through 2 more opponents. So now just down to 45 seconds. But my goodness, Lee Sins coming in right when it matters, finding the Lucio was so huge.
Yeah. And that's what...
And again!
Again! There's not going to be any resurrection, so they've just got to sit and wait. And this is where the variation of 3-3 comes in huge. They decided to run with the Roadhog instead of the Diva. You can't shut down the Pharah in the air. You've got no defense matrix. Maybe you've got more peak potential, but I don't feel like it ultimately works out. You're going to have a Coalescence to work with. Ferrano, just switch over to Widowmaker. It's already 60% to an Infosite, so putting the work in, it's going to be a couple tools to work with, but they need to make this work if they want to win out the match now.
Coalescence coming out to start things off. There is an Earth Shatterer available. Oh, Jazz Peanuts gets stunned out of his. Oh, and the barrage only finds one, but again, it was onto Izzy, who did have an Earth Shadow. Ferrano looking for picks. Will find a huge headshot, but can he help out on these big frontliners? Karos pick needs to stay off. Ire is able to find a couple of bullet shots to take down Ferrano with a headshot. The Graviton Surge is good for one. Piku coming out with the Hog Wild, trying to find some way to pressure off. And now it's a Doom Fist for Funny Bird. He's able to use a seismic slap straight into an uppercut, keeping Ire at bay, but there's no rocket punch up. He can't finish the kill, and top 500 Smurf is able to take him down, and we're gonna end this one up 3-3. Holy smokes.
Absolutely beautiful read by top 500 Smurf. You know 3-3 is probably coming out. You come up huge on the Farah. You completely shut it down. This is going to be Kiku's huge Diva Bomb from what feels like forever ago now, but it's been a great even matchup between these two, and we're going to a map 5.
CCF Iron. Are you kidding me? Again, did not look all that great in the first control. They split the difference in the early points, but kind of get shrugged off on the third. And Lijiang did not look so great earlier. And now they come back. They find 2 maps rather convincingly, and we're about to go to a Game 5 tiebreaker. It does not get any better than this here in the EU Open Division. This is, Vals, I mean, did you, I don't think either of us expected this result at this point.
Yeah, it's going to be an Ilios tiebreaker now, so all the marbles are on the table, all the chips are in play. One team's going to win out here. It is going actually, my bad, it is 2-1 and actually, so if CCF Iron win out this tiebreaker,
yes, yeah.
we'll be going to our map 6 overall, but it's match point still for non-esports. They take this, they've won out the set.
Good point. The fact that there was a draw seemed like such a success for CCF. I just immediately assimilated that as a victory. So yes, the rule set is a little bit different. So now that we are 2-1, you essentially wipe that map from everyone's minds, and this could potentially be, again, 2-2, and then we would go to Ilios, and then I think Oasis is the other one for tiebreakers if they, of course, they did tie on the hybrid there. So this control map is map number 5 is could be interesting. There's still potential. The hope is still there. But goodness, it definitely felt like a win as you take a look at CCF Iron after that last map, able to get themselves that draw.
Yeah, and you know what we see a lot on Ilios? A lot of Farah and a lot of Widow. And who's a great Farah and a great Widow? Top 500 Smurf.
Gotta love it.
The dream is not dead for CCF Iron. They can still turn this around against all odds.
And it really makes you wonder, you set yourself up with the name Top 500 Smurf. You have to figure at one point in time, if not still.
Yeah,
or it's a massive debate, one of the two, and we're just completely looking like fools.
Yeah, it's got to go one of 2 ways. Either you've got to be completely carried by your team, bottom out, don't accomplish anything, and it's almost ironic at that point. He's not living up to that name. Even if maybe he hasn't demonstrated all the skills you'd expect from a top 500 player, he's definitely up there. He's definitely proving to be the MVP of his team, and you've got to give him credit. Both these teams have shown us a lot. I've really enjoyed watching this matchup.
I have too. Again, both teams coming in 3-1 in their win-loss ratio. We talked about their map win percentage earlier. Very, very even coming in. We talked early on about non-esports looking like the superior team because they capitalize on these small moments. But, man, CCF has really shown that they can contend and potentially send this not only through Game 5, but potentially to a deciding Game 6. Again, it is 2-1 with a draw. So this Game 5 will essentially be our quote-unquote 4th map when it comes to the point totals. And wow, this is going to be, again, explosive performances. You expect the fair to come out, but also with well being our first point, you also expect a couple of McCree gameplays. Yeah. Tip of the hat to Pine for really showing off the potential McCree can pull off here.
I mean, on well, I'm just disappointed that we're not seeing any Lucio. It's understandable, though. Both teams want to commit to this pharmacy. Karaspik is actually going to go over to Lucio. I believe it's just to speed boost them out of spawn, and he's going to go back to the Zenyatta, but a man can dream. No, actually,
a man can dream.
Hold the phone. Karaspik is committing with Lucio. We're going to see some boops, boys.
All right, Boops pulls everything being used to try to use the 7th man element of this middle well, but the pharmacy battle takes place overhead. Can anybody find the first pick? It's going to be really big to see if any of these, well, either Ferris or Mercies can be found first and foremost. Point will open up. Funny Bird taking a lot of damage. Top 500 Smurf right above Ben Zelda as Missiles continue to go back and forth, but it's actually Kiku who gets the trade on his counterpart, and Ferrano as well, finding his counterpart in Lee Sins, and that's going to be enough to get the side of non-esports the first point and get that early control.
Yeah, and I'm most intrigued by the Farah battle in this matchup. I've been more impressed by Funnyburn's Farah performances so far, but if we look at Ultimate Charge, it's actually top 500 Smurf who's putting in a lot more work on the pick so far. Even though that didn't ultimately translate, the team fight still went in favor of non-esports. He's putting work in. Ben Zelda, though, we want to talk about ult charge. He's 90% to a Valkyrie already. That's absolutely huge.
And that could be the deciding factor in this first fight, especially. Ferrano's at 78% himself on the McCree. Funnyburn does win the trade against top 500 Smurf. The res will come back out, though, so an opportunity to still turn this one aside. But Funnyburn again finds 2 picks onto Electrospark and Jazz. Pianist now holding W and moving forward. Ferrano on the left. It's going to be Funnyburn on the right, and Ben Zelda as well, also kind of dodging in and out as they do push themselves back away, and 46% still looking to capture more of it is the side of non-esports, as they rightfully so back on the other side, on their side of the map towards this windmill. Again, just want to play their positioning. Top 500 Smurf, how did you ever find that snipe from downtown? Takes down Ben Zelda. So talk about opportunity, it comes right in for the side of CCF now.
It's really intriguing to me, actually, watching the difference in playstyle between the Mercies. Electrospark is more oriented on keeping top 500 Smurf alive. Obviously proves me wrong there, sitting with his team, but he's been more focused on Electrospark, while Funnyburn sits back with the team. It's a huge barrage though from top 500 Smurf, wins out the team fight, nice and easy, and they finally get some point charge, but Valkyrie, barrage, Sound Barrier, Deadeye, everything's coming online for this offense now. They only need to win 1, maybe 2 team fights here. It's still all coming up none.
Apparently it is noon as Ferrano tries to find something perspectively from the left. He won't get an opportunity to take down anybody. The supercharger comes out for Jazz Penis, but Funnyburn in the backline! He's got himself 1 with the barrage, make that 2, and it's on the 2 big targets as the Orisa goes down. And look at that, a nice pull from Kiku once again takes down his counterpart of Miniman. The Transcendence is being used, but really only at this point for absolutely nothing, as it will be a recapture here for non-esports. My goodness, what a play there for Funnyburn.
And Pavlov would be proud. The Transcendence comes out in reaction to the barrage almost instinctively, but it doesn't really find any value. There's still 2 bricks coming down. Little known fact, barrage can actually out-damage a Transcendence, so combine that with delayed reactions, didn't find any value there. Still a Valkyrie on this offense though, but going up against a lot of ultimates on the defense, it's all coming up none. I feel like they've definitely got the advantage here.
Supercharger coming out this time for non-esports, looking to make this away early. Top 500 Smurf goes down, and Ire will take down the Supercharger beacon, the drum falling away, but look at Funnyburn right above everybody, which is exactly where he wants to be, funneling in so much damage. Electrospark does get the res on a top 500 Smurf. Needs to have a big moment here. Coming in, here's Ferrano able to take down top 500 with the Deadeye, and now it's just going to be down to Electrospark and Mini, but they fall away like dust in the wind. Overtime fades away, and the first point on Well goes the way of non-esports.
And despite the Farah battles, it actually came down to Ferrano on the McCree and Izzy Die on the Orisa. Huge performances from both of them, just keeping everything stable, preventing any aggression coming out from CCF Iron, shutting down the Farah in the air. Both the McCree and the Orisa playing anti-air, actually. And, okay, we're going to see wholesale changes now. CCF Iron going over to a full dive, pulling out the Genji and the Widow. Not so much change. There aren't as many changes coming up from non-esports. They are going to move over to the Winston now after hovering over Orisa. Okay, so it's actually mirror comps at the end of the day. The only difference is... Nope, never mind. Funnyburn changes. Prove me wrong. Shuts up my point in the middle. It's mirror comps. Genji, Widowmaker, dive. Simple as that.
Non-esports was just trying to make you look silly for a second, but don't worry, you still look as smart as ever. Ferrano coming out. Top 500 Smurf, oh my goodness, opens the door early with a headshot onto Funnyburn. He will be rezzed. Ferrano almost gets a similar fate as he does get hit by top 500, who's just sitting right on top of this little Pantheon ruins beyond on his side. Able to find a nice little angle, but again, a lot of shots trading back and forth. The point will open up, and again, it will be now actually CCF who steps on point first, and responding to it very late is going to be decided on esports. They do take down Electrospark. That's a huge pick as Ben is still alive to keep everyone alive. And I don't think top 500 Smurf is going to be able to get enough damage with his Widow through all of that shield and health pool. And that will indeed be the case, but still in contestation at the moment, as Leesons has done a good job of staying alive with Ire. Jazz Pianist is able to hit down Benzelda late, so it's still, the contest is still good, and look at this, CCF, they're finding the picks now.
Yeah, just BNS commits to a dive in the backline. They aren't quite able to shut him down as he dances around the bubble. Builds up a final, finds a couple picks, and this is actually going to be a tournament for CCF Gaming. Even if Fuan has taken down top 500 Smurf, the reinforcements have come in. The cavalry's arrived. The primal was invested by Jazz Pianist just to cause disruption, and that's going to be the point eventually going over to CCF Iron.
Big props to Leesons and Ira for being able to keep that point in contest while also, again, on Ira's point, keeping everybody alive while dealing significant amounts of damage with the orbs from Zenyatta, and now looking for some control just a little bit forward, not so much, but still kind of splitting the map in their favor as CCF Iron, and it's going to come down to who's going to commit first and where will they commit for the side of Nantes. They did not, again, get that first capture point, so it's 22%. The self-destruct will open up some disruption. The primal raid into the backline as well will follow up right behind, but Ire, a great response to the Transcendence and proper time as well, will allow Mini and Leesons to take down both supports, and now finding more in the backline. Both damage dealers are down. It's going to stagger out these frontliners. Izzy will fall away, and it's just Kiku who will be using the thrusters to get out of dodge, but still really good sustained, great play from Ire.
And even with the interslide up from Toronto, Karo's pick couldn't see the ninja coming. Leesons finds an early pick on to Karo's pick, and they just snowballed the fight from there. A couple of tools to work with on both sides. Both the Autumn Ultimates and the Dragon Blade's going to come up for Nantes Esports. On the other side, they've got a Dragon Blade of their own, but no support ultimate counter with. They're going to be relying on minimum self-destruct to zone out the opposition.
Top 500 goes down. The Valkyrie comes out right afterwards for Benzelda, but Resurrected is top 500. Can he make something happen? Miniman able to find one, but Funny Burn still has the Dragon Blade enough. Now it's going to be Karospic with the Transcendence trying to keep his team on this point. 72% and counting up still in contest. Again, Ire is still alive, keeping everybody alive as well as he can while also contesting the point. It's up to 80%. You got to find these kills if you're not esports, but they're just unable to do it. Where's that target prioritization? It's not looking the same like it was on Lijiang Tower, and now numbers are starting to funnel back through for the side of CCF. They might just be able to keep this one in their favor. Ire finds 2 kills, 92% counting up. Top 500 Smurf finds Verano, and that might just be enough to put this one away as Kiku is demeched and taken down. 99% overtime, and no one's gonna touch in time. Holy smoke, CCF. Ire finds huge picks, huge transcendences, and they find 100-0.2.
At the end of the day, Ruins is a Widow playground, and there is no better Widow on this field of play than top 500 Smurf right now. Takes over some of those fights for his team, goes to Titan fights they would otherwise lose, and now moving on to Lighthouse, where you can still definitely run a Widow on the high ground, but it's not quite as deciding a factor. This is going to be the most even matchup on Elo so far, I think. And this is for all the marbles. I'll repeat what I said earlier. This is match point for Nantes Esport. Seen a couple, but here we go. If they can win this round, if they can win Lighthouse, that's it. They're done. If it goes over to CCF Iron instead, we're going to go to a map 6 here.
I'm excited. I could not have pictured or envisioned a better matchup, and I feel like we deserve a map 6 with how well these teams have been playing so far. Again, in the middle of the season, fighting for potentially playoff contention. This is a huge matchup for both of these teams that will actually be decided. CCF to get on the point first, forcing non-esports to respond. The Brigida will jump in saying, I'll take that, but Moira off the map, able to be pushed away, as well as Kiku falling from Jazz Venus, who is again living the Reinhardt dream, holding W in front of so many faces, and CCF Iron completely dominate non-esports. It's just the Lucio left. Karospic forced to run away. He will do so successfully, but at the cost of the first point going in contest and in favor of CCF Iron.
Yeah, and 3-3 trumps all. Funny Burn needs to find more value on this Farah now we've made the switches come over. Maybe that's the answer to win this out. Top 500 Smurf though, coming up huge on the Brigitte, gonna have a rally already. They don't actually need to invest anything to win out this team fight, so they're gonna have a lot of tools to work with on the defense.
Yeah, but there's no hit scan to deal with this pharmacy, and Funny Burn finds himself one and is just floating for free, funneling so much damage in. Top 500 Smurf will take down the Lucio. It's a big pick, but Ire is still also here. A lot of numbers being traded back and forth. Funny Burn gets taken down by Leesons of all characters. The Zarya finding the pick, and CCF Iron somehow, some way, they're able to continue to put the pressure on. They don't care what they're playing up against. They win the second team fight. This is going to put them well above about 60%, even before the potential of a retake.
Yeah, so just PNS invest the Earth Shadow there. Maybe he wants to get that one back, but he's already halfway to another. If he has an Earth Shadow of his own, there's going to be the Barrage, the Self-Destruct coming online for Nantes Gaming, so maybe they're going to have an opening now if they can get a huge combo off here.
So there it is, the Barrage combo with the Earth Shadow. It finds one, but it's on a big target of Moira before it falls away. But again, Jazz Pianist able to find a Fire Strike that takes down his counterpart, and now top 500 Smurf able to punish. And my goodness, a full team kill again. CCF Iron are dominating non-esports. And at this rate, if this continues, this will surely send us to a game 6, but we don't want to count all of our chickens before the eggs hatch, as there's still an opportunity for the retake.
Yeah, we've seen bigger comebacks, but going up against 2 support elements, and actually a third as the rally comes online for top 500 Smurf, it's definitely all in CCF Iron's basket right now. They've got a lot of tools to work with on this defense.
Oh, but pinned up is top 500 Sport before the rally here could get here. And now it's going to be the Graviton Surge. A lot of ultimates being thrown in. Overtime is here. Numbers are about even. Ben Zelda will bring back Izzy. That could be huge. The Barrage finds 2. Make that a third as Miniman gets taken out of mech. But again, even though they'll win this point, they have to play a perfect game, just non-esports, as they have to find a full 100-0 here if they want to have a chance at putting this one to bed.
And Funnyburn has come alive on the Farah. Single-handedly wins out that fight. There's a lot of ultimates burst on both sides, but it's going to be the Graviton and the Rally, which Top 500 Smurf died with, coming online now for CCF Iron. So all hope is not lost. Momentum is definitely still in their favor as the pressure's on for Nantes Esport now.
CCF using the rally here just to move themselves in potentially, but again, look at Funnyburn. He's just hovering over this top balcony, throwing so much damage in, but they need to find the kills. Graviton Surge being used. Can they find the kills? Ire will take down his counterpart. Miniman also finding one, and again, Jazz Pianist holding W, slashing and ripping apart their opponent. The self-destruct comes in, but they're not able to find a whole heck of a lot. And now it's overtime. Verano is here to at least contest this. He's gonna have to do it in the last second. Needs to do it now. No, he's just a little bit too late. And CCF Iron will send us to a game 6.
And you want some Overwatch? This Overwatch is going on for as long as we can. And bear in mind, we still have another matchup after this.
Goodness.
We're gonna be sat here a while.
Ben Zelda just said, I'm tired now. And you can see that's very much so the case, but goodness, just the pressure. I thought for sure, without having much hit scan and really at all, that Funnyburn was going to be in a spot to really put this one away on his back, but they just did not find as much success. They couldn't find the kill potential. There was just too much sustain for CCF Iron, and Ire, who did not have the best start to this match, is looking absolutely incredible lately on the support.
Yeah, after a slow start, CCF Iron as a whole are coming alive. We're going to be moving over to Nepal now as our final map. Control, again, it's the European special, we know the drill. And we're going to see a lot of Widowmaker here, especially if we go over to Sanctum, and that could play over into CCF Iron's favor again. Top 5 of the Smurf has only been on an upwards trajectory, and if he gets much better, he's going to be Carpe. He's just going to be winning these fights without anyone else getting a single pick.
It's just been incredible to see. I mean, he's been the standout for sure, but Jazz Pianist and Ire have really stepped up, especially when we saw them just back there previously in the Lighthouse. But beyond that, really as a whole, on Ilios altogether. This is, again, a pleasure and a treat at this point in time. Serving up some of that EU special, as you say. I don't know what menu I order that from, but I want more of it. Put that on my speed dial, as this has been absolutely thrilling Overwatch to see so far. So again, game 6, again, we're at game 6 because the hybrid map was a full draw. So that map 5 essentially serves us as our 4th point. We're 2-2. We have to get somebody to 3. So we'll go to a game 6 again. Control on, you said it, Nepal will be our final map. And I don't know. I'm not even going to throw predictions out there because there's no need to predict at this point. We're just essentially along for the ride, and it's been a fun one.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen some great Overwatch. It has been really back and forth. It's a close series. We've gone to map 6 for a reason. We are going to be loading into Nepal now, so it'll be interesting to see what these teams can come up with.
I mean, at this point, I feel like we deserve to see this thing go 1-1, and then on the third map go 99-99. It has to come down to 1. I feel like we deserve it at this point. I mean, come on, you guys got to serve us up the rest of this. You can't tease us. This has to be an absolutely ball-busting last map, and well, it's at least looking to be that way. It is Sanctum early on, so again, We're looking for potentially that 7th man element, that giant abyss sitting just off the outside of that control point will likely serve up some very interesting deaths this time around.
And in the same way we saw well go over to non-esport earlier when they could play these slower Revissa Roadhog based compositions, I feel like they're gonna have the advantage here, especially if Funnyburn decides to pull out the Farah again. However, the Joker in the pack that could play against him is top 500 Smurf on the Widow. We've seen how effective Widow can be on Sanctum as well. You can control the sightlines down bridge, you can take Potch onto point as well, and he's really been feeling himself. If you can come up huge on the Widow, this could be anyone's map.
And again, on the flip side, we've seen these 3-3 comps come into play, and we're likely going to see more of that here in Control, although it doesn't look like we're going to start off with that initially from the side of non-esports. We will get out of CCF by the looks of it, as they do have the Diva, the Reinhardt, the Zarya matched up with the Brigida, Lucio, and the Moira. It will be a Soldier Genji being pulled out, though, so a more, I would say, standard 2-2-2 coming out for the side of non-esports, looking to get that extra damage. And if they can get the Soldier online, he really can be disruptive when it comes to helping break down these shields.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't seen the Soldier come out yet at all so far. Been overshadowed by the McCree when you need the mid-range hit scan. But hey, if you can make it work, I'm all here for it. Some interesting rotation as teams effectively swap sides. It's just a cat and mouse chase. Rhino wants to sit in the back on the Soldier, whereas CCF Iron wants to get aggressive. They punished Funnyburn already, and even though Jaspiana scores, they're going to have point control originally.
That's the power of the Lucio right there. We're happy to play this around the world game. We've got the speed that can get us in your face, and that's exactly what happens as top 500 Smurf is able to take down Ferrano, who has found himself a considerable amount of ult charge, at least until then. And now as we look at a top 500 Smurf, are you kidding me? He continues to go off, just holding himself right in front. Kiku's going to get pushed off the side of the map by Ire, and that's going to be enough for CCF to get the first early control and then some after that second team fight. They're up to above 25% and looking to zone out. And this is where this map becomes dangerous, especially as you're going up into a 3-3 comp, because it's going to be so hard to break back into this point.
Yeah, CCFI, and just don't take the foot off the pedal. Full initiative all the time, full speed boost, play aggressive as possible. And although I liked Ferrano's idea with the flank round the side, he got punished ultimately, tried to run away, and they just nobled the fight off the back of that. There's a lot of ultimates on the line for both teams. We'll have to see what comes out.
Oh, but all of this is countered away by Karospic using that Transcendence. It's a really good trigger, 3 ultimates used for essentially just the 2. But it's still, at this point in time, the point is still being controlled by your team in red, but finally, it's going to be CCF Iron finding more point control. They are able to swoop right back around. Somehow they're able to keep themselves on the point, and what looked to be pretty good on the back of a Karospic ultimate of the Transcendence from the Zenyatta for Nantes Esports. They're not able to convert the kills.
Yeah, so finally some changes are going to come up for Nantes Esports. They're going to move over to the Reinhardt and the Zarya, but they need to try and get to the point now. There's only 20% left. Karospic gets taken low by some aggressive Zarya Gravitons. By some aggressive Zarya Vipers, sorry. Manages to survive, but they need to try and push onto the point now. The momentum is still absolutely in CCF Iron's favor.
Self-destruct coming out, the tactical visor also, but Miniman finds himself 2 big targets on the Funnyburn and Karospic. The point is now in control still, but being contested by CCF Iron. Izzy dies, trying to keep himself on, but he's being looked at by 3 opponents wearing blue trunks and will be pushed off Ire. Oh my goodness, come through huge, why don't you? The coalescence being used, the overtime fading away. 100-0 CCF Iron. Ooh, they set the tone early here in game 6.
Yeah, and CCF Iron are showing why they've been able to come through on map 6 and why they're pulling off this reverse sweep. Been absolutely huge. Lee Sen's in particular on the Zarya, not dropping below 90% energy, just constantly shredding through the opposition. Top 500 turfs, setting up plays on the Brigitte as well. Been great performance on all sides.
Now we go into our second point, and goodness, from here it only becomes more open when it comes to the fighting. And if you're not esports, you have to find a way to capitalize on this poke game that was so successful for you early. Although look at this, Ferrano for Nantes is going to be pulling out the Sombra, and then on top of that, there will be a Wrecking Ball, and on top, a Doomfist. So talk about some cheeky strats. If this doesn't catch CCF Iron off guard, I don't know what will.
I mean, you've got to pull up something now. We've seen more of this Sombra Doomfist Wrecking Ball play, normally paired with a Diva instead of Desire, but Kiko's they've had some great off-tank play altogether, so whatever he wants to go with, I'm fine.
Pile drive goes down, most of CCF Iron goes up, and Doomfist tries to capitalize, but what looked to be a good opening for this first point did not really result in much, and now here comes that grappling hook. Izzy is gonna swing around and round we go, but Doomfist gets taken down by Jazz Pianist, and they're happy to slap away at this Hammond, who is really just being disruptive, but not doing much else besides that. And now the point, again, first controlled by CCF, and top 500 Smurf, you have to figure he's gonna find himself in the kill feed. He finds both supports. How huge is that?
Yeah, and he's finding himself in the kill feed for a good reason. Absolutely oppressive for Gita, especially over these last 2 control rounds. Built up the rally already, along with the Earth Shatter and the Coalescence too. He's going to pop this rally, probably quite soon, get everyone together, get armor down for everyone, try and counteract some of these chip shots we're seeing coming in. Toronto has made a change.
Yeah.
Not feeling himself on the Sombra, going over to Fowler. This intrigues me because it's normally what we see from Funnyburn, but he's all tied up on the Doomfist, so they've got to try and make something work. Almost trying to scramble here to find an answer.
And CCF plays a little bait and switch as they come through. The minefield comes out for Izzy. Can it find much damage? Ooh, the Earth Shatter takes down Garospic, and Izzy actually also falls. CCF Iron, how are you dominating this so often after the first control point map was so deceivingly in the side of Nantes Esports? CCF Iron has looked incredible lately, and Ferrano, who again does not have much opposition, as this Pharah has yet to really put much of an impact on the kill feed.
Yeah, he has putting in plenty of damage. He's built up a barrage already, but he's not converting that into actual kill shots in the kill feed. You're correct. There's a couple ultimates online on both sides. CCI need to reach touch the point. They almost give it up, but the barrage is going to come in from Ferrano now.
Oh, but it gets taken down by top 500 Smurf. Electro Spark helped out. Can they find Ben Zelda? He gets canceled out of the res by the shield bash from top 500 Smurf. Now coming back through is going to be the Graviton Surge from Leesons, and that's going to be enough to keep this in favor of CCF, and they're up to now 87%. I don't know if they're going to be able to contest this in time. Ferrano's going to have to sit here and touch to try to keep the dream alive, but he does it too early. He might just get pushed around, and he does. Ferrano still alive, is still at 97%, but he falls away. The Wrecking Ball comes back in, the Transcendence as well, and Izzy's going to be destructive as possible while swinging around this middle point, but he gets stopped up. Can he stay alive? It does not look to be, as he does get taken down. The rest of CCF is still here, still healthy, trying to find these staggered kills, but Funnyburn able to find one uppercut and Electro Spark. Oh, and now it's Ben Zelda with the last second res as he comes back, but top 500 Smurf, of course he finds his way. The minefield coming out, and that's not going to be enough, I don't think, as Jazz Pianist is happy to take down those orbs, as well as the one who was carrying it, and there it is, CCFI with the reverse sweep plus a draw, comes back and takes the win. Wow, Vals, I am speechless.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anyone on CCF you can criticize at any point during those last 2 rounds in particular. Top 500 Smurf had an absolutely dominant Vegeta's performance, but everyone played their hearts out. Leesons in particular on the Zaya was huge too. And hey, reverse sweep. We all love to see it. Everyone loves a great underdog story.
Everyone loves a good underdog story. Don't know if we'll necessarily call them the Cinderella, but regardless, an incredible matchup. Props up to both teams for putting on an incredible show. At the end of it, though, CCF will put another win in the, obviously, win column for them, improving themselves to 4-1. And non-esports would look so good in the beginning. They fall a bit short. They're going to have to fight hard to get themselves to the playoff road. But again, that's been at least us here as I hold shift. Vals, let's send it back to Gio and the gang to break this one down. An incredible match. Take it away there, friends.
Thanks, guys. I think this went a way that none of us really expected to happen, and it was pretty exciting. I mean, the first thing that I want to mention, Nari said at the beginning you wanted to see some Sombra. Well, on Hollywood, you saw some Sombra. What did you think about that?
That Sombra was insane. I was so happy to see that. I was saying, doing such great work and so patient, going in Viz, running into the back line and just waiting. And then the Zen was on his own, dead. And then, translocate out of there, I was never here, but your Zen is dead. Oh, it was so good. And those EMPs, just so on point. The EMP, and then coming through, following up that with the Diva self-destruct, so tasty. I was loving every minute of it.
It was great to see, especially on Nepal as well, bringing it back out. Just because, like you said, it's just a matter of waiting for the exact right moment to just pop up, do a little, and then it's it's kind of like a tracer in the sense that you go in the back, you try and one clip someone, except you have way more bullets and they're a little more accurate, and you can instantly go all the way back to spawn in an instant. So that was pretty cool. It was very smart of Ferrano to use her in that way, and I think it really threw him for a loop. They didn't necessarily know what to do about that right away, and it took them a hot second to really get used to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a really interesting thing that we saw from these games is we saw Nant kind of pulling out some really experimental compositions, not only using that Sombra, but in the end in Nepal there, they were playing the Doomfist with a Pharah, with Wrecking Ball and Zarya. I mean, what did we think about that? Because that's not something we frequently see.
I think they knew they were getting a little outmatched in the GOATS matchup, and they just decided, what can we do to just completely disrupt a comp like GOATS? So they went for high knockback, lots of stuns and CC, and just like, we're gonna smack you around and you're gonna get confused and we're gonna win the fight. The thing is that didn't happen. The Doomfist got some great kills, but ultimately was a little too easy to maybe focus down. The Wrecking Ball, the minefields were not very impactful. Spinning around the point is great. It's very distracting and makes for a cool show, but the damage you deal while you're spinning around isn't enough to follow up on the gravitons or anything like that. So ultimately, it was pretty, but not enough. So I really would have liked to see something a little more for that. Maybe some slightly different changes in the support lineup to help manage sustain, so the Hammond could like actually shoot his guns, because those are pretty useful. He's got 2 of them, and they deal a lot of damage. So maybe if he could have done that a little bit more, we see some success there. But it was a good idea, and I'm really glad that they tried something new to break the comp, because they were getting outmatched on GOATS. It just ultimately wasn't enough. They need a little more experience on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Nari, ultimately, what did CCF do right, or rather, what did Nant do wrong to have this kind of reverse sweep?
Something that we were talking about, the tanks stepped it up. CCF came out of nowhere. We even talked in the beginning about how they have this super inexperienced main tank. And in the last 2-3 maps, he was just like, hell no. And especially on Ilias, when he came through and he would get 3 kills out of nothing. And the other thing that really stepped up there was the synergy between Reinhardt and Zarya. Those Zarya bubbles coming through on Reinhardt at just the right time, keeping him alive. Brigitte with the health packs. It melted together so well. And I think that Nant just didn't see it coming. It was almost like they were playing a different team. They started the first 2 maps against this one team, and they were like, oh, cool, whatever, we'll just do our thing. And suddenly, out of nowhere, their tanks stepped it up, and Nant's tanks didn't step it up. And that is exactly where the difference came in.
Jazz went from walking onto the payload by himself and dying instantly to getting 4 kills a fight every fight. That cannot be understated in its importance, because man, what a turnaround that made for his team. The moment he figured it out with his off tank and with his support line in terms of communicating, positioning, knowing when to engage and where to engage, all of a sudden they won. All of a sudden they started winning maps, and that was obviously very important, because when you win, you win. High level analysis here. When you win fights, you win games, and you want to win games in Overwatch. It was really cool to see.
That's the aim.
Yeah, no, I've heard that as well. It's not entirely confirmed. Sometimes you want to lose to learn or something like that. But I think today they wanted to win. I think today they decided we'll win. That sounds fun. Let's do that.
Lose to learn. That's what I tell myself every time I play a game. It's
Me
just
too.
a learning experience.
Every plat comp game, I grow stronger by losing. I'm like, yes, I am more knowledgeable now than I was 30 minutes ago after this draw on Hanamura.
Oh man, I think it was a really, really great games that came out as none of us expected, and I'm really happy for CCF. Commiserations for Nant, but we've had a really fantastic series here. Thank you, my analysts, Nari and Thibble, so much for joining me here, and we thank you so much for joining us here on Open Division Season 3, and we will see you very soon.
Bye.